Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our board meeting. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll start with
I'm just
Yeah,
seeing
so-
if there's someone. Okay.
your mic. Okay. Yeah, we got to look behind Bob around here. Start with additions, deletions. Before you do that, I will say, as you can see, there's only 6 of us up here. Jamison, Yager will not be with us tonight. Additions or deletions?
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to withdraw.
You don't have to. It hasn't been submitted.
Oh, okay.
You just don't
Well,
say anything.
We're not going to have it.
We're not going to have it. There will be no addition, although there was one shown that was for the possibility if we did not have a meeting on the 27th, but we have enough agenda items to do it, so.
I have 2, so I'll make the easy one first. Motion to delete lot split 386, since the ZBA voted that down.
Delete it?
Yeah.
Support?
It is recommended to act on it this evening
It's an
by
action
our
item.
planning consultant.
Okay. Go ahead.
Sorry, my understanding was to conclude the process, the board should make a vote, yes or no.
I don't know if now's the time to talk about it. I actually want to add a discussion item on this and maybe act on it next meeting, if that's okay. So that's why I was suggesting to delete it, but that's my personal opinion on this.
That's up to the board. That's at your discretion.
Yeah, okay, so we have a motion and a support on deleting action item number 2. Any questions on that? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, so action item number 2 is deleted.
So, okay.
And I would like to make a motion to add a discussion item around our R1E zoning, which affected this lot split.
I'll second it.
For this meeting or a future meeting?
For this meeting, if I may.
Okay, we have a motion and a support. The only problem I would have is being prepared to discuss it.
Right.
That's I have no problem having the discussion, but I know I wouldn't be prepared to discuss it tonight. I'd need to reread it and
Fair enough.
Know what's going on. So
Totally. I'm willing to discuss it next meeting.
you want to? How about if I just get it on the agenda, so we won't have to add anything. We'll get it on the agenda.
That's fair to me, yep.
Okay. So we do have a motion and a support, so we do have to vote on it. Those in favor of adding a discussion item on R1E, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Yeah, or nay?
Nay.
Okay, the nays have it.
And again, I
yeah.
would like to discuss this next meeting, not, because I am prepared to vote on it tonight, but I want to hear what you have to say, and I think next meeting would be better.
That's fair, yep.
Okay. I need a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Hang on here, just let me record that. That brings us to our presentation. Teresa?
Could, Mr. Supervisor?
Yes.
Kyle, could I just ask that before our next meeting, this will be, if this is on the agenda, that you present us with additional materials to what we were given today, as to why you think that would be relevant. It'd be nice to discuss it, but also nice to hear where you're coming from.
Of course, yes, I definitely will.
All right, Teresa.
This evening, we have with us Mr. Daniel Beard from Yo and Yo to present the audit results from the audit for the year ended March 31st, 2023. It's a little bit delayed due to the transition with the finance director position.
Okay, Dan, you want to?
All right. That's me. I'm Daniel Beard from Yo-Yo CPAs. I'm the in charge on the audit engagement with the township. Miss Rivette is the principal on the engagement, and I'm presenting in her stead. We have a presentation up on the slides, and I'll just go through those with you. When we conclude the presentation, if you have any questions, we can go through those. So the first thing is an audit opinion. We are engaged to give an opinion on the financial statements. We are an independent accounting firm. The keyword being independent, we can't have any conflicting relationships with the township in order to give an opinion, and we have to be specially licensed in order to give an opinion on the financial statements. The financial statements for March 31st, 2023 received an unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of assurance that our profession can give. So if you were to grade the financial statements, that would be an A+ grade. That means the users of the financial statements can rely on the numbers in the financial statements to make decisions. Management's responsibility is the preparation and fair presentation of those statements. So again, those financial numbers in the statements, the footnotes, those are the responsibility of management, and it's management's responsibility, the finance director, her team, to have design, implementation, and maintenance over internal controls to make sure that there's safeguards in place to make sure that those numbers are reasonable. Our responsibility is to express an opinion. Again, we expressed an unmodified opinion. Our opinion comes with the highest level of assurance, which is reasonable assurance. That's not absolute assurance, but reasonable assurance. We got this next slide here. This is the general fund revenues and transfers in. General fund, obviously, for local government is the lifeline of the local government. When we look at this pie right here, we're looking at about $6.8 million in 2023. Obviously, the largest piece of that pie being the taxes, which contribute to about 58% of the overall revenues in the general fund. When we look at that 58%, that huge piece of the pie right there, that's actually an increase of 4% from the previous year. The previous year you came in just below $3.8 million, so you're seeing growth, obviously, and we're seeing that across the board as taxable values continue to rise. When we're looking at the property taxes in the current year, it's about $686 million in taxable values within the township, which is an increase of about 4.65% from the previous year. To go through some of these other slivers, we have the state shared revenue, which is the second piece of the pie. That's the second largest contributor to the revenues. That's up about 6% from previous year, and it contributes to about 18% of the total revenues. We also have a sliver up at the top, which is other revenue, and that's capturing things like fines and forfeitures of about $58,000, interest income of about $188,000, and various other revenue of about $300,000. If we go to the next slide, here's a snapshot of the general fund revenue and transfers in over a course of time. As you can see, 19 to 20, pretty flat. Then we start to trend upward a little bit here. From 2022 to 2023, you had an increase in revenues of about $604,000. That's an increase of about 9.7% from the previous year. Going to the next slide, now we're going to look at the expenditures and the transfers out. So the largest piece of the pie here is obviously the public safety, which is 62%. When we look at that 62%, that's up about 9% from the previous year, and of that $4.2 million, $3.8 million of it is personnel expenses for public safety. The largest increase contributing to that 9% increase from the previous year is actually going to be retirement of about $160,000, that increase from the previous year. Again, pretty much a balanced budget or balanced activity. If you look at this pie, we're looking at about $6.8 million as well. We go to the next slide. We're looking at the trend for the general fund expenditures and transfers out over the course of the last 5 years. You can see there's an increase in 2022 to 2023 that's a little bit steeper than the previous years. So you had an increase of about 7%, which was $435,000. And then you also had an increase in 2021 of 7% of about $403,000. So pretty steady, and then starting to pick up as inflationary increases occur throughout the country. If we go to this next slide, this is your major proprietary funds. So this is a little bit different than the general fund because we have the public works and we have the airport fund. They operate on full accrual as opposed to modified accrual. When we look at this, this is kind of like you would think of it almost like operating a business in terms of my mind because of the full accrual. I'll break out a few things here. For operating revenue for the public works, you came in at just under $6.4 million. That's an increase from the previous year of about 9%. To counter that, your operating expenditures or expenses increased 6.7, didn't increase 6.7, came in at $6.7 million, which is an increase of 5%. So your revenues outpaced your increase in operating expenses there. Another thing to consider with full accrual is that in those operating expenses, we're also including depreciation, which is a significant estimate. We don't necessarily know when, water lines, stuff like that needs to be replaced, but it's factored in there. Depreciation in that $6.7 million for water would be $1.8 million, and for the airport it'd be about $677,000. So after we have an operating loss up top, again, that's at the full accrual, we come down to the change in net position, which would be after the other items outside of operating, and you come into an actual change in net position for the positive for water and sewer, and then for the airport, a little bit of a loss there. Total net position is still healthy for both entities, for both funds actually. You're at about $48 million for water and sewer, and then you have about $15 million for the airport. The next slide is your retiree healthcare contributions. So this right here is the orange one would be your OPEB, the blue would be your pension, as it increases, of course, across the last 5 years. These are actual contributions. When we look at the trend, this actually is pretty consistent across the board with all of our local governments. We will say that in the current year, you were 55% funded in the pension. Previous year, you were 64% funded in the pension. So a dip, but everybody kind of experienced that dip due to market trends and whatnot. I will touch base that you guys missed out this year there was a $750 million grant program through the state of Michigan for those that were below the 60%. So you were above the 60% when they measured it. Now you're below. So there was a lot of other organizations, there was a lot of other governments that got some significant funding that you guys didn't get, unfortunately, just due to timing. When we look at the OPEB, however, and to touch on pension again, the state wants you to be at 60% funded. So you guys were very good. You guys were good, which is why you didn't qualify for that grant. When we look at OPEB, and maybe down the line that they'll have a grant out for that as well, they want the OPEB to be 40% funded, and currently we're at 4% funded, just because for the longest time all the local governments were just paying those contributions as they became due. We go to the next slide. This right here is kind of like our overall report. we always obviously give an opinion on the financial statements, but there's also an accompaniment to that where we notify you guys if there was any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. Those are items of concern. There were none of any kind. We did have one management consideration, and I believe we talked about that in the past. It's just the way that some of the bank reconciliations are done. There's a lot of due to, due from activity in between various funds, and I've made a recommendation that you guys use a pooled cash format and use the software to basically wipe out all those unnecessary due to, due froms, as well as kind of eliminate some of those, the amount of bank statements that you guys have. And that's a recommendation, that's not a requirement. Finally, a couple things to touch on. There was a new, and it's not on here, I just want to touch on it. There was a new implementation in the current year for March year ends, which was GASB 87. So that's right to use assets. We threw some cell phone towers in the general fund, and we offset it with deferred, unavailable for use deferred inflows. There's also a new one coming out next year to be prepared for, which would be the SPIDAs, which is the counter to that, but for software-based IT arrangements. And then 2 years from now, you're going to have the compensated absence new standard coming for you guys. And other than that, it was a clean audit, no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies. I obviously want to thank Ann, who's not here, I don't think, Derek, the team, and Jim. Thanks a lot. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
I do. I have the cash reconciliation process.
Yeah.
Have you discussed that with Teresa?
I'm sorry. I feel like I wasn't talking to the mic, and I feel like Teresa's already looking into that. She's looking at due to, due from
Yeah,
active.
I just want her to have
Yep.
all the information.
Yep.
Thanks. Other questions?
Sir?
Yes, sir.
One question on when you said the grant
Yeah.
for the, was it the pension fund?
The
I think you
pension
said?
grant. Yep.
How much money are we talking that they were giving to other cities that were below 60%?
Okay. So $750 million for the total grant. I saw a lot of cities with like 3 to 4 million. City of Flint got $170 million. It's public.
170 million to one city?
Yes, it's all public information. Yep,
Because they were under 60%?
because they were under 60% to bring them up to the 60%.
And then how many million or so do we pay each year?
Or your contribution.
Or just this one?
Yep.
$1,000,008.
It's almost 2, I thought.
Yep. One just.
$1,000,008.
On-
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yep.
So it's almost 2, and the city got 170 million
Correct.
because they were under 60%?
Because you guys managed your plan better than they did. They got more
I understand
money.
that.
Yeah.
But again, it was a matter of timing as well, right? So
Mm-hmm.
at the time they take that reading,
Yep.
We couldn't put in for it.
Yep.
Right.
By the time they paid it out,
we could.
Yep.
And I understand it's not we did
Yep.
well.
Yep.
Or better, how about that? We
Yes.
did better, so
Yep.
we didn't qualify. I mean,
The st-
I think that's kind of why I bring it up. Is
Hey, but
I find it
And
interesting
it
as well.
was, you had to be in that position to put in. It just didn't apply to us at the time.
Correct.
That they were asking for application. We were at the 60, we couldn't put in.
You wouldn't have.
Yeah, we would have been thrown,
Yep.
they wouldn't even
Yep.
accepted our
so say ours was 59, let's say, or 58.
Yep.
Maybe $1 million.
Yep.
Something to get us to where we should be.
Yep.
Is that what the difference is?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that.
Sorry.
No, no, it's not your fault.
Well, I think it's important that the public understand it wasn't due to anything we didn't do. It was actually due to something that we did do right, and we just did not qualify for that catch-up.
That is correct. That is correct.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for explaining that.
Yep. I think a lot of people don't know about that, so that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm bringing it up to people.
You think they're gonna have it next year, Teresa? Gonna get to 50, then they'll give us 10 million free. Kidding.
I'll be
kidding.
able to tell her. I can tell you ahead of time.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
Guys are too serious.
Any other questions for Dan?
I do. So first, thank you for this. I remember last year when you came, I learned a lot. I am noticing, I should have your recommendations from last year. I feel like our recommendations this year are shorter
Yep.
than last year.
Yep.
I'm glad you brought up the cash reconciliation processes again. I do agree that we should probably look at those. Last year, I remember you gave us some input into our budget process and making sure I forget the exact recommendation, but I was just curious why you didn't include that this year, because I did notice some areas where we did go over expenses in our budget, just
Yep.
slightly.
Yep.
And I was just curious why I didn't include that this year.
Just because historically, and we didn't feel like there was we didn't feel that there was much significance in the variations this year as there was last year on that item. But that is always a state statute that we went over last year, and you guys kind of have your approach that we discussed last year, where you appropriate for the year essentially, instead of making multiple appropriations throughout the year.
Gotcha.
So that's why we didn't revisit it.
Okay, because this year this last budget process, I should say, we did do a new amendment at the end of the year to try to get us up, but we still went over in at least one major category that I saw. So
Okay. So, yep, Teresa and I have kind of talked about the budget overages, and we're gonna look at that before the audit next year to make sure that we're in line, because they're you guys budget by department, and we're thinking that the way that it's presented in the RSI, we can tweak a little bit. So
RSI is?
the budget to actual schedules in the back.
Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep. Teresa would probably be the best person to talk to about it. She's
Okay. No, of course, yeah, no, I did ask her about some of those areas
Yep,
earlier, and
yep.
she gave me a good answer. I was just curious why that wasn't in your recommendations this year compared to last year.
So we sometimes will drop recommendations if we see that the recommendations aren't going to, be taken. Those are not findings; they're just recommendations.
Gotcha. So basically what you're telling me is you feel like we're taking the recommendations you gave last year, yeah? Or no?
Yeah. I think that it was a tighter budget from what I saw.
Anything else? Teresa, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I don't.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Say hi to
Thanks,
Jamie
Dan.
when you see her. I talked to her earlier today. She didn't. I should have said, "Are you coming down?"
Do you want me to
Thanks.
close out of this? Okay.
Well, Teresa, how does it feel to be on the other side of the audit process? Finding out.
It's nice to be on the side, and I have to say, in my prior governmental position, I was on the same side of the board table, so.
All right, moving right along. Public comment on agenda items, which we only have one. 3 minutes. Name and where you live, and it appears we have more people than we normally have. So we will hold you. We'll have to hold you to the 3 minutes if everybody wants to talk. So, who would like to be first? Is there anybody? Okay,
Nobody's standing.
nobody, I'm not gonna miss anyone. Who would like to be first? Anybody? Nobody?
Okay, well,
Yeah.
there's movement.
There's
but
movement, but nobody,
Okay.
oh,
Kevin had his hand up.
they have it orchestrated.
Hello, my name's Kevin Flavin, Park Lane. The question I have, or the issue is, where we go, police millage. And if anybody on the board has followed public discourse on Facebook or other places, there seems to be a huge confusion about how the money is, why there is a request for millage for the police that adds on money for the brownfield and money for the airport brownfield and for the DDA. And it seems to me that, or to people that are neighbors, that this confuses the situation with why isn't the millage for the police separate from another millage for these other areas. And I think it's unfortunate that the language for the millage is very confusing for the average person. I understand that it was devised by the, or reviewed by the attorney for the township, but I think that it's unfortunate that it's not easy to understand, and I don't understand why actually I would like Mr. Budney to explain why the three things are put together into one millage.
We'll answer your question on the brownfield when we get to our reports.
Okay, so.
And it's a police millage, so they'd be better off to explain it than me.
Well, you are the person that by law is directed to put together the budget?
The budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
Isn't this part of the budget?
This is a request for millage.
This is a request?
It will end up in the budget.
Okay. So,
But
did you?
But aside from that, we're not going to do the discourse. You know how it goes, Kevin. We will answer your question when we get to our
Okay.
reports.
I really think that it's unfortunate that it's so convoluted that people can't understand it simply. It should be written down simply. We're asking for this amount of money to do this for the police. We're asking for this amount. If you want a separate millage for the DDA and a separate millage for the brownfield authority, we should do that.
When we do the report, you'll understand that this is just.
You know,
it's
I've
in
read
every-
this over 4 and 5 times and I don't understand.
well,
And a
no-
lot of other people don't
Well,
either.
no, I mean the explanation of why it's in there. Thank you, Kevin. Anyone else? Oh, we got more movement back there. Oh, the young guy. Good evening, Bill. How are you? Oh, oh.
I'm to some degree in agreement with what Kevin has been saying. I don't have in my heart and mind any question about the goal or the intent. But the way that it's accomplished and what people understand is important. Your own credibility, in my opinion, whether you want to blame it on the police or yourself, is subject to question when this happens. I have this number of dollars I need for this thing, I have this number of dollars I need for that thing, I need this number for something else, instead of trying to serve it like a dish of fruit cocktail. And you got to separate the carrots, excuse me, my mind failed. It's important that the understandings be there. I know that we're under time pressure now. Bob Zelasko made a recommendation last meeting we had, you were studying it, that we simply ask, the police need a mill. Put that together. We have bought ourselves some time to look at this a little better, to think it through and articulate it in a way that people will understand and accept. Because after this decision is made, if there's animosities, you have to live with them for what you're trying to do for the future. And you don't have to move that fast. I'm being pragmatic is all I'm saying. We need the mill. Let's give it to them. But let's take the rest of it, given what all has occurred, and work our way through it. If this thing blows up at the election, there's still time to go on February if we have to. You see, there's not a pressure that way, and we can, with a little bit more time, cool off and articulate to the public what is actually going on. I think that would be the way to handle this.
Thank you, Bill. It is on, by the way, this would be on the February election.
Not sure, is there an election after February also, May or something?
There's 4
We
elections
could get on
next year.
board.
There's 4 elections, February being the first.
Before we ran out of money, we could still get on to something
Oh,
else.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And that's why we picked February. Anyone else? Because if not, oh, Bob?
Bob Zelasko, Blauvelt. First of all, I have always supported the police department, and I always will. But I have some real problems, as many other people do, with the present verbiage on this ballot. This is the present millage for the police department, 5.9. They are asking for an additional mill, and rightfully so. They need it. They need it to go into the 2024 program. The problem is, these are not all going to be rescinded, and we're asking for the full 6.9. For example, the allocated millage of 1.2 cannot be rescinded. So it's going to hang out there. So I'm going to vote for an additional 1.2, and I'm going to leave this allocated millage out there to be levied at any time by the discretion of the board without the voters' consent, 8,000 voters. I have a problem with that. That is not the way to do a millage. I find it deceitful and offensive, and I'm sorry, I cannot support this. Now is again not the time to do a dedicated millage. The timing is bad, the risk is high. If we pass this ballot and put it out, the rapport that we have established over the years with the police department and the people could suffer. I'm urging you to go back, do your homework. This proposal is not good, and I, for one, cannot support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Greg, how are you tonight?
Greg Karmazin, 2122 East River. I want to also use the overhead here. Okay. I attended the Police Commission special meeting on November 1st, as did a number of other citizens. Bob Zelasko was there, Bill Heil was there, there were others there, and this issue of the police millage was obviously the main reason for the special meeting. And it was a good discussion. I mean, I think that there is solid agreement that the police department needs an additional mill. They've needed this mill for several years, actually. In fact, as far back as 2020, during the 2020 election, there was quite a bit of discussion in that campaign about the need to fully fund the police to get us back to the standard that we were for years, having 3 road patrols on all shifts and having 24 personnel in the department to support, including the officers. And that's based on the police commission's recommendations and standards that they set up with the command staff years ago. And that was, in fact, what the department was able to staff for many years. And it's further evidence of this not just being on Grosse, but this is based on a U.S. Justice Department Bureau of Justice Statistics survey of the entire country. And this was the ratio of staff to to citizens that we had, the 24 and the three road patrols on all duties. And it was also predicated on having to obtain, being able to obtain a 3 to 5 minute response time for 911 calls, multiple, if in certain scenarios. So I think there's broad agreement that the police need another mill, and it should have been done years ago, but it wasn't for various reasons, and there's speculation on why that wasn't done in the past. But here we are now with the opportunity to get it right and give the citizens the opportunity to fully and appropriately fund the police. And we've got a proposal on the table that does include that additional mill, but it also does other things. And I think that a lot of citizens are left wondering, why are we doing this in such a way that opens up the possibility of this board and any future board collecting millage money that's replaced for the police, and basically giving the board a blank check to spend tax dollars without a vote of the citizens on anything other than the police. And
30 seconds, Greg.
Okay, and just I want to point out that on the screen, this is the township document that was presented at the police commission meeting. And it's clear that if you look at the far right column, that the township has a plan to collect a half mill from the general allocated millage that would be replaced by the super millage. Well, this is the document that was presented at the police commission and discussed. And I certainly would welcome in your action item discussion explanation as to why that was put on there and discussed at the police commission meeting, because it apparently was designed to show that the township board could allocate this additional millage without a vote of the citizens for other purposes other than funding the police if the super millage passed. So, as I said, others have said, I think there's some confusion about this language, and it would be, you have time to get this on the ballot. You have another meeting in November. You could come back with cleaner language targeted to show the 1 mill in such a way that there's no confusion, all these issues about the township board being able to increase taxes without a vote of citizens. All these issues could be addressed. So I just urge you to think about that, or at least tonight, take a pledge that no one on this board will raise taxes using this authority, if this is passed, without a vote of citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Anyone else? Oh, there we go.
Margaret, Shelton, Bellevue. I just want to compliment these gentlemen that are here regularly and try to speak up for everybody, because I somehow feel like I see them do this regularly. I'm not sure that you're all taking them very seriously. Like, perhaps you think they're just outliers and people don't really feel the way they do. And you'd be very surprised to know that most of the voters are thoroughly disgusted with the lack of transparency. And perhaps everybody has their point of view on that terminology. However, we shouldn't have to have millages for a road, and then we know that the police also need money, and not put that on the to vote for as well, and then skip it, and then, let's come back to it later on. That's not speculation. That's actually factual. We knew we needed that police money more so than we needed roads. It shouldn't have been a this or that. They should have both been there, and whichever one got on, maybe both. That's the winner. That's just how voting should work. Now we're getting to a point where we have to read things that people are very confused by, and people don't have money to spend right now for extra taxes. They just don't. There's a lot of people that are on fixed incomes. We have to start thinking about this. We have to be a little more cognizant of what people who are voting actually want and what's best for them, rather than confusing them with language that they just don't necessarily understand or have the time to try to understand. Let's try to make it simplified like these gentlemen are asking. We'd all appreciate that, not just them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
Tim Tung, Lake Road. So, as you see these numbers increasing because of inflation, I just don't see why we could raise taxes, slip in stuff without the voters agreeing on it, and I think that's unright. Usually when things are vague or you don't understand them, someone's knocking at your back door, and I don't think what you're doing is right, and I think we need to address this. Thank you.
I'll just say, you guys understand that this isn't being voted on and it's done if we pass. This is, all we're looking at today is language. The vote is in February. The education that you're talking about is you can't educate before you have something. The language is the beginning part, saying that, yes, we're going to have a millage for the police. They have to then get out and educate as to what is going on. So nobody's hit anything, nobody's done anything yet because we haven't started. It has to be done in a process. The process being, are we going to do anything? If we pass the language, obviously they're going to go, the police want a millage, they're going to get their, they're going to go for a millage. Then they have to educate the public on what is going on. And we will talk about the language when we get to our reports. So I just wanted to, it almost sounds like some of you might think if we pass this, the millage is through. It's not. You get to vote on the millage. And the vote isn't until February, and in between now and then, if this passed, the education would come out. The police would get out there and explain what they're doing.
And so would they. You would be part of the process as well, Mr. Karmazin, and your Grosse taxpayers. No doubt you would put information out there.
Well, and everybody could say something, so yeah. So, is there any? I just wanted to add that because I don't want you to think that if this were to pass today, that it's a done deal. I mean, you have to vote on it in February. We're not passing anything. We're only looking at language today. Okay.
Hi. Good evening. Kurt Plishka, Loma Circle.
I'm sorry. Could you say your name again?
So this entire topic.
Could you say your name again? I'm sorry.
Kurt Plishka.
Thank you.
Loma Circle. So this topic is completely new to me. I'm only here because my son and his friend called for all hands on deck to attend this meeting to educate ourselves on exactly what's going on. So with that said, I don't understand, but what I'm hearing is that there's some confusion apparently. As far as the education that you talk about that will be given once the wording of this proposal is in place, well, I can tell you that whatever efforts are being made to bring this attention to the people has escaped me to date. I'm too busy working every day to earn a living to pay the already exorbitant taxes on Grosse. Yet alone, and so when this new training takes place to educate us as to the confusing verbiage of this millage and why, I suspect that's not going to reach my ears as well. And so I have great concerns, and I'm telling you that, as has been said here before, that if I encounter confusing wording or that I find devious or deceptive, I will surely vote against it. And the damage, as has also been said here tonight, the damage that is done by trying to pull the wool over the eyes, especially given the political environment and people's weariness about political entities and government in general, I would take pause if I were you to, as they say, get this right, because there's going to be a lot of damage done. You're not going to get the millage that you want, and the damage to your reputations and Grosse's reputation as a township will be dirtied in the process. And I can't support any of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else before I turn it over to Brian? Brian? Brian has a few. I think we got 16 comments.
Yes, I do have 16 tonight, so this way take a little while. I will start with Trustee Jamison Yager. Unfortunately, I will not be able to attend tonight's board meeting as I am obligated to be elsewhere this week. This is particularly difficult to me because I strongly oppose the millage language in the police millage action item. This is significant, There is significant public outcry about the half mil listed on the township documents shared at the November 1 Police Commission meeting as township plans to collect, and I believe it is disingenuous. Moreover, this doesn't repeal the previous millages it replaces, enabling the next board to actually collect the general operating millage, the police super millage, and the police super millage. It allows a majority vote of the board to levy taxes on the people for which they earnestly believed the super millage would replace. I think it takes too much autonomy out of the hands of the voters in the case of a common law township. I would encourage you all to vote against it and leave the decision to tax themselves with the voters and not with the next board. Moreover, we've increased PD and FD spending significantly over the past 3 years, and we don't have a thorough plan to address or mitigate future costs. We cannot keep going back to the taxpayers for more funds. Finally, why are we including the airport and DDA in a police millage? Single subject millages have existed for a reason, and the general fund does too. The voters should decide where they want to spend their money, not just how much to spend. If the township administration needs another half mil, then we should ask for it, not pack it into a police millage. All right. Looks like Denise Smith, East River. I am horrified by the fact that the township board would be voting on any type of plan or proposal that would enable the board to raise property taxes in the future without the consent of the taxpayers. Really? Unfortunately, since this whole proposal has only come to light for citizens very recently and seems to have convoluted and confusing language, perhaps purposefully, I am withholding my opinion on the actual use of the money from this super millage, police funding, giving tax funds to the DDA, etc., until I can speak to it more thoughtfully. I'm mostly concerned with the provision allowing a millage to be enacted without being voted on by the taxpayers. The timing, secretive nature, and muddied language of this proposal is not a good look for the supervisor and really the township as a whole. You may try to explain it away in whatever manner you wish, but perception is reality. Is taxation without representation legal? I don't know. I am not a lawyer. But culturally, it is ingrained in us as Americans that it is not the right thing to do. Just because you could do it doesn't mean you should do it, and definitely not in this sneaky and underhanded way. Please withdraw this proposal and do better for the citizens of Grosse. Steve Engel, Bridge Road. I 100% against the super millage. That was an easy one. Julie Engel, Bridge Road, I am 100% against the super millage. Patricia Trevino, Swan Island, taxes should not be raised without a vote from Grosse taxpayers. Please vote no. Please vote no on the proposed super millage. Wendy Kamen, East River Road, I am 100% against the 6.9 super millage. I am against any tax increase without public vote. I am a homeowner who pays property taxes. Let's see, Christine Davis, Canterbury. Taxation without representation. A secret super tax only mentioned on a meeting that was not televised on November 1. Trustee Uta always says, don't rely on social media. This is the only way we found out from the Grosse Civic Issues post. If it wasn't for social media, the residents would never had any idea anything about this. Budney ran on a platform to change. It's almost like a bait and switch. He's not interested in what the residents want, only what he wants. When 2 or 3 trustees try to represent the residents, they get voted down. The Budney supporters on the board just rubber stamp his request. This takes my freedom away. I can't vote on all millages. What about the effect this will have on resale values of our homes? This has become a dictatorship. If this super millage is so above board, postpone the issue until the complete details appear in the paper for all 10,000 plus residents to read. There are a lot of seniors on fixed incomes. I'm one of those and don't get a pension. What about the young families who are struggling with the high cost of food, gas, everything, and now you want to add to that burden? But you, Mr. Bunny, decided to play down the need for more funding for the police so you could get the roads fixed. Next month, I wrote about the construction on Canterbury without notice and how dangerous it was. Take a drive off Church onto Canterbury and see how well the crews aren't working. DTE couldn't repair a line because of all of the equipment. But that is nothing compared to this secret super tax. Yes, secret. Publish it for all residents to see. You forget some people don't have cable or the internet. Yes, it's true. Everyone who voted for the supervisor thought they were getting a fresh start. Instead, we ended up with a dictator. The meetings are so poorly ran, I've often thought about gifting Supervisor Budney a copy of Robert's Rules of Order. So many things have been mentioned in meetings, some which even had deadlines. For example, the pay bridge situation, never to be mentioned again. Or a flip comment about deadlines don't matter. Motions are on the floor. It becomes a free-for-all, or someone always speaks out of order. I urge all township trustees to vote this super 6.9 millage down. I want my freedom of choice. Cynthia Mooring. I am 100% against the waterway. I am 100% against the proposed super millage. This board cannot keep playing with our police department funding. It has been going on for years and it needs to stop. Ken Wilson Voigt. Any raise in property taxes needs to be voted on by the residents, not decided by the township supervisor. Deb Ouellette. Hawthorne Glen, 6.9 mils. This is an excessive and totally unnecessary increase. A big no. Matt Filkins, Burning Bush. I would like to express my concern in opposition of Township Supervisor Jim Bundy's plan for the Township Board to raise taxes without the vote of our citizens. From my understanding, Jim Bundy's 6.9 mils super millage would replace the township's 5 millages that currently fund the GIPD, while also increasing the funding by 1 mil. However, his super millage does not rescind all of the millages that it replaces to fund the GIPD. Therefore, 2 of the millages, the general operating millage, 2 mils, and the general allocated millage, 1.85 mils, will be left on the books as collectible millages by the majority vote of the Township Board. Therefore, I strongly oppose the Township Board voting to increase current or in creating any additional property taxes. The leaders of this board need to focus their attention on securing the funding the Township should already be receiving from Wayne County. Let's see. Lisa and Marty Melhorn, Grays Drive. As I'm sure you know, there are rumors flying around about the Township Board's plan to raise property taxes by 0.5 mils without the vote of citizens. Please know that we are in opposition to this plan. It is unfair and it is taking our voice away. This is not in the best interest of our residents. It is taking our right to vote away. Why has there not been public discussion on this? This is very disturbing, to say the least. No taxation without representation. We are unable to attend the board meeting tonight, but wanted our opinion on the rumor to be heard loud and clear. Thank you. Daniel McCarthy, Hickory Drive. What is the proposed use of the 0.3 mils increase for the police millage? Why is there no set value to the Grosse Township Downtown Development Authority and the Grosse Airport Industrial Park Brownfield Authority rider on this millage? Sorry, I had 2 of the same. Mary Bresnahan, Bellevue. Could you please explain to the residents why you took the police millage off the ballot of the previous election? You commented to my last email that you only respond to questions and not if someone is just making a comment. It was recorded, Supervisor Budney, and so was the meeting when you told a resident that he was only able to comment and not ask a question. Your responses and actions have confused this community in more ways than one. It is extremely sad how confused the community is about your millage proposal and the funding of the police department. Since the police millage was passed in the primary election, many residents thought that it had passed. As a result, the police have been short-staffed. You knew that the community was getting impatient about the road situation, so you took advantage of their wants at that time. However, that does not take away the Wayne County tax that we were already paying for our roads. This community is being double taxed for our roads. Now the community is being told that you are going to increase our taxes without a vote from the residents. That action speaks to a much different type of government that does not follow the rights for citizens of the United States. It is also understood that you would like to present a super millage to the residents. The super millage of 6.9 mils that would also fund the DDA and airport. This community has been taxed enough, and we cannot afford to take care of Wayne County or the Township Board's mistakes. Don't forget, we paid bridge fare for 18 months, and we have to pay it again in another year. If the Township Board supports Supervisor Budney with his plan, then you are supporting a type of government that none of us want to live in. I was in Farmington Hills a few days ago, and someone laughed at us about our bridge. Grosse is known all over the place about their bridge and how it is unrealistic expectation. Grosse will not be a desirable place to live, and we will lose residents. It will become a failing community. I believe I got all of them.
Wow. Thank you, Brian. All right. David, consent agenda.
Thank you.
And I'd just say, hopefully some of these questions, because, obviously people are confused, but some of these questions, again, we're at the very beginning of this. It's not like it's a done deal. These questions over the months will be answered. And hopefully we'll be able to answer some of them regarding the DDA brownfield and everything tonight. David?
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve consent agenda 23-081, which consists of minutes of the October 23rd, 2023 regular meeting, check registers dated through November 3, 2023, our IT service agreement, annual Wayne County special events road closure detour permit resolution, annual Wayne County pavement restoration permit, annual Wayne County street sweeping permit, annual Wayne County maintenance permit resolution, declare surplus and authorize the disposal of a police vehicle, support of the Great Lakes Way collaboration agreement.
Support.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions regarding the consent agenda? Comments? Seeing none, we have a motion to approve consent agenda 23-081, which consists of the minutes of October 23rd, 2023 regular meeting, the check register dated through November 3rd, 2023, IT service agreement for the Finance Treasurer's Department, annual Wayne County special events road closure / detour permit resolution, annual Wayne County pavement restoration permit resolution, annual Wayne County street sweeping permit resolution, annual Wayne County maintenance permit resolution, to declare surplus, authorize disposal of a police vehicle, and support of the Great Lakes Way collaboration agreement. We'll do a roll call vote on this. Joe?
Yes.
David?
Aye.
Uda?
Aye.
Carl?
Aye.
And Kyle?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd just like to say I am personally very pleased about the Great Lakes Way Collaboration Agreement with Mr. John Hardig, Dr. John Hardig. And I'm very glad that we're going to be participating with that.
Good, yes, so am I. All right. That brings us to our action item, which we've heard a lot about already. Joe?
Okay, recommend the Township Board approval of proposed police millage language.
Second.
Historically, the Grosse Police Department has been funded by a combination of several voter-supported millages along with one levied allocated millage that amounted to 6.6 mills. These combined millages currently do not provide enough funding for the police operations. The Police Commission, in conjunction with the township officials and the township attorney, have drafted a new proposed single police department operating millage of 6.9 mills. If approved by the board, this language will be offered to the voters in Grosse in February of 2024 election. The new ballot language reads as follows. In 2024, shall Grosse Township, Wayne County, Michigan, no longer levy the existing 6.6 of 5 various voter-approved police millages and township operating and allocated millages to fund the operations of the Grosse Police Department and approve a replacement single new levy of 6.9 mills, $6.90 on each 1,000 of taxable value for a period of 5 years, 24 through 28, inclusive and subject to authorized disbursement mandated by law for the purpose of the general operations of police services, including personnel cost equipment estimated to provide revenue of $5,306,100 in the first year, of which a portion will be dispersed to the Grosse Downtown Development Authority and Grosse Airport Industrial Park Brownfield Authority. You want me to start?
Joe, why don't you start?
I'm not sure where to start here. I have to tell you, this is very ironic because I read it. I was part of it. We had township board members. Derek was on it. The police chief who's in the room tonight was on it. I am not hesitant of our goal. Our goal is the police department has been underfunded for a couple years now. It's the job of the police department to come up with the numbers that they feel they need for the next 5 years. That goal is 6.9 mills. There's certain things in here. We have people in the audience. We have people out in the community. I'm confused at some of this. At some of this language. If I'm somewhat confused with this language, and please, I'm no expert at this at all. You know, I'm new at this. This is the first millage I've ever been a part of, actually in the writing and going through it. How can I expect the people from Grosse to know what it's talking about? There's certain things in here. I went out Sunday night, and I left my phone at home on purpose. And in 2.5 hours, I had 15 texts and 5 phone calls in just 2.5 hours. And some of the confusion is the language about the airport and the DDA. And I know this doesn't have to be in there. It was told by us, by the attorney, that it was mandated by law. And I contacted 2 experts. I know from the board they don't like when I go do my own thing, but I have no choice. I have to because, and I got it through the MTA, an expert, not works for the Michigan Townships Association. This expert is contracted by them to teach classes. And this is confusing about the airport, about the DDA. And I know Jim was talking about before, and it was a great idea because I watched it. I call it an infomercial. I'm not sure what you call it. But they put on this on GI the Township TV, GITV, when it came for the road millage with the DPS, and they were on it. They explained everything. But I got to say, this gentleman right here, and I'm sorry, was it Plishka? Did I say that? I'm sorry if I said that wrong, because I don't like when people butcher my name. So this gentleman walked up there, and you hit it on the head. I don't know if everybody's going to see that. I mean, I don't know how many saw we can't tell how many saw this infomercial, but it was a great idea to go on GITV. But you hit it on the head when you said, I'm probably not going to see it. And I get that. And there is this education that we're going to have to go through. I'm not sure that this is the clearest language. I asked for a couple things to be changed. I did ask for the separation of the allocated. Now, we have to be honest with the people. This is part of it. Any millage language for the police department that does not use the allocated millage that has been used for the police department, now follow me on this. In layman's view, this will be put on the shelf by the board, and the board can vote on it. You guys are absolutely correct. At any time, if they have 4 votes to levy at the beginning of each year is usually when we vote on it. But they can levy up to, and I'm not sure if it's 1.85 or 1.25 because a Headley kicks in, but that is true. That's an absolutely true statement. And one of the issues here, it's not that I have a problem with the goal. The goal is absolutely to fund the police department and fund it correctly. And I know I go back in my history, and I know people get tired of this, but I'm the one that restructured the police department to have 3 people on the road at once. I did that when I was the police chief, so I know what it's about. And I know how important it is on response time that we monitored. And Doug Carmack in the back of the room still wants that. And he still monitors response time. It's important to him. So we have this confusion of one or the other. I'm sorry that it really is kind of convoluted. I don't see... I'm not in favor, and I never have been. Last November, we went to this 1% that was going to be added to your taxes with a vote of the Township Board, and I was absolutely not in favor of it and was very vocal about it. I don't believe that we should be taxed, or our taxes should go up, without you people and the people listening, and the people of Grosse Ile, for that matter, having a say-so in it. That's just me. I don't see how else we can get around this because they're 2 separate issues. One is the goal of the police department, which is this millage, and one is if you do have a millage and it goes through, then it will leave this portion up on the shelf of an allocated millage. And I'm so hesitant for this language. I don't believe the airport and the brownfield should be in there. It doesn't have to be. That's confusing when in one of the phone calls was, we're now paying for the airport? I didn't know we're paying for the airport. And no, we're not paying for the airport. It's captured by just what's inside the airport boundaries on every millage. Every millage has DDA capture, which is just Macomb Street, and some of the money going back to Macomb Street, and some of the money going back for environmental cleanup here. I mean, it's just, to me, it's so confusing. I would like to hear from the others and what they feel and their explanations, and I very much welcome it, but I'm still kind of hesitant. But go ahead, that's it for me. Thank you.
Derek, one of the big things that we heard tonight was this DDA and brownfield. I myself have never seen any of our millages with any of this ever stated. It's my understanding that it's in there because our attorney told us it had to be. So since you work closer with the language on here and with the attorney, could you give some explanation?
And can we just add, this is a new attorney.
Correct.
So this is our first cycle with the advice of a new attorney. Our past attorneys may never have brought this forward.
So I can address a couple of different components. On 3 separate occasions, she had emphasized that this language needs to be in there. Now, as the township board, you can choose to take your council's advice or not. I mean, that's your choice. If you don't want to have that language in there, you can eliminate that. But that is their advice, and it's my job to present that to you. You pay for her counsel, that firm's counsel, and that is the counsel they're providing you on that specific language. Now, all of our language, once approved by the board for any ballot initiative, goes to the county for review and approval at the county level. So there is a second check and balance on that. As Trustee Porcerelli had mentioned before, all of our millages within the township, within the districts of DDA and with the Brownfield, are captured by those entities. So if anything, I guess you could say this is being more transparent and indicating that these funds do receive funds, which they currently do receive funds on the 3 police millages that we have, the general and the allocated. So as do the millages that we have for roads or recreation or any other millage we have within the township. So to the point of it being confusing, yeah, it is. It adds an additional layer of confusion. And once again, it is up to the board. If they did approve this language, they could approve it without that verbiage in there. Obviously, it would be at odds with what legal counsel is recommending. So hopefully that answered questions you had with regards to that.
Also, in your response to Mr. Karmazin's letter, you also noted, through that spreadsheet that you shared, that these are relatively small amounts. We're not talking millions.
Yep. I don't want to get into the intricacies. I mean, I can go over those numbers. I don't want to get into the intricacies of how a TIF works, but it's the incremental difference between the taxable value when the district is established and where it is now. So it's the total taxable value of the township is in the $790 million range. I believe the taxable value in the DDA is right around $7 million, so a very small fraction of the total amount of capture. And in the Brownfield, I believe this year is right around $3 million. So what that equates to is right around a capture of about 45 or 48,000 for the DDA, and right around, I think, 20,000 for the Brownfield.
Yeah, it's around 70,000
right,
for the two.
Of which the differential between what's currently being captured and what we captured under this 1 mil increase is pretty minor, right?
Well,
so you're already capturing a large portion of that amount already.
And I think, Derek, board members, if I could, without that language, and there's no question it's confusing, without that disclaimer, it would appear as though the entire millage was going to the police department. It's true, except for the 70,000 or whatever that's being recaptured for DDA and the Brownfield Authority. So it's 6.9 mils less
70,000.
Less $70,000.
That would be going to the
Right.
police.
So if you added up the numbers, it would appear as though the police department got shorted. But all of the business owners on Macomb Street and the entities that are within the Brownfield Authority, it's a recapture on the amount of this millage based on their taxable value.
In all of this, much like the allocated mill, is by law. This isn't the board setting anything or the board doing what they want. This is by law that we have to do it. We don't have a choice. So, the allocated tax that has been going to the police for back in, I think it started in the 80s, that is for general fund, general purpose use. It's allocated by the county through the state, through the county, by law. And that allocated, we cannot get rid of that allocated amount. It's always going to be there on the shelf, whether we use it or not. So it isn't something that, at the end of 5 years, it can go away. It's not. It's there. It can be raised by the county to a higher level. And so nobody, the idea, everybody, again, this process is just starting, and really the comments that are being made are like something you'd hear 3/4 the way through of what you're doing. This is just starting, and the whole idea, and all the meetings that I sat in, and I didn't sit in on all of them. I didn't sit in on that many. The majority of them were done by your police commission, your police chief, your liaison, Derek. I did sit in on some. All the way along, it was said time and time again, the people have to be told what is going on. So it's frustrating to sit here and hear people say, well, you're trying to hide something, board, when no, we're not. We're going to be very open. And it's the board who decides. It's a vote of 7 people. It's not one person sitting up here. And I don't understand where people get that idea that any one person can do anything, because they can't. They just can't. That allocated will be there. I mean, I don't know what else we can say. It's going to be there. And if it were to be used, which is, and I might as well throw it in right now, at the only time money that mill for that what's shown is $500,000. It was thrown out as an example of what could be done because the general fund scrapes by. This year, as an example, we're putting we have 12 HVACs up on the roof. 10 of them have to be replaced. They should have been replaced long ago. We couldn't do it because we had no money. The discussion of maybe keeping $500,000 so we would have money to do things like that was thrown out as a possibility if we went with this format on the millage. That's as far as it got. All of a sudden, the discussion now in social media and everything is like it's carved in stone. It isn't. We may be able to look at this and say, we don't have to go for anything else. Or we may, but it'd be told to you. Nobody's going to sneak it in. I don't know of anybody that snuck anything anywhere. It's put on all. Our meetings are open. We have no closed meetings. They're here. They're televised. They're recorded and played again. I understand people saying, I can't come to the meeting. It's interesting that it seems like no one can ever come to a meeting other than our Gita people. But people, it's out there. I don't know how else we can get the message out to you if you're not going to watch the meetings, you're not going to, and I had suggested, and I would hope that the police do it, is put together an educational film and put it up and start running it and run it right up to February. Because you do need to understand. And it's a matter of how do we do that? How do we get you the education? I believe there's certainly going to be a mailer sent out to you on this. And I would hope that some type of video would be put out that is run on a loop to explain everything that goes on. Like I say, I certainly had not seen the downtown development or brownfield before. I understand why it's there. I understand why you would want to tell the people about this. It does explain that, hey, every tax that you have, the properties that are within the brownfield, the properties that are within DDA, part of their tax that they pay is going back to them. That's by law. It's not us. It's not us deciding to do this, and we don't have the ability not to do it. It has to be done. So we want to tell you everything, but you don't tell anybody before you start. We're just starting here. This is the very beginning. And I would say, Joe, you said you've talked to attorneys that it doesn't have to be in. And I'll throw this out, and I guess it'd have to be a friendly amendment to change the millage language to take that wording out based on us going back and double checking to make sure that it can be taken out. And that if it couldn't be, it'd stay in. Yeah, go ahead, Uda.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm kind of chomping at the bit
No,
here,
go
right?
ahead.
And,
Go ahead. People
Yes.
are not understanding. We want them to
Exactly.
understand.
So I would just be careful about amending that motion at this point, simply because I think even if we keep it in, our job would be to explain what its purpose is there. If it comes down that the attorneys are adamant that it needs to be in there, then it's imperative that we explain it. The police, every other organization that gets involved in the campaigns explains what it's for. So it might be a little premature. And as Derek said, this still has this language. Even if we approve this language tonight, the language still has to go to the county for approval. 9 times out of 10, they approve ballot language, but we know from past experience that they sometimes ask
Will
ballot language to be changed or
absolutely.
modified. So to that end, what I want to say to everybody who commented here today, with all due respect, your comments are well taken, but they're premature. So this is our first step in the process. If we don't propose ballot language, which this is a proposal for ballot language, it says so, then we can't have an election without ballot language. So if we want people to vote on something, we have to present ballot language. And we have to wordsmith that language so that it reflects not only what we want to say, but that it also reflects what we need it to do. And so if you're telling us that it's not clear, then we have work to do to make it more clear. Because it's very clear, if you look at our presentation earlier today, 62% of our general fund goes straight to the police. We run your township on shared revenue, state shared revenue. It's an amount that goes up and down every year. By law, a general law township is mandated to have a treasurer to collect taxes, a clerk to run elections, a supervisor to assess. I mean, I'm being very reductive here, but those are 3 departments that are state mandated. A general law township does not, by law, have to use its allocated monies to fund a police or a fire department. Here on Grosse, for decades, we have made the decision as a community that we are going to fund our own police and fire departments. We could contract with the county to do so, but we decide as a community year after year that we want to fund our own police and fire. And so we have millages to do that. That's what general law townships have the luxury of determining their own level of taxation. So if you want improved roads, you can vote yes on a roads millage. If they don't matter to you, you can vote no. If you want your police department to have improvements or to keep up with the times, so to speak, you can vote on those millages. And for the I've been here 20 plus years, every police millage has always passed. But back in, I think it was 96 or 97, we reached a point in the township where we could no longer fully fund the police department and the township administration just out of the state allocated millage. And so they started introducing additional police millages, and now we're up to 5. And so this plan was devised with participation of the police department, the police commission, to find a way that we can fully fund our police department to the standard that we want and expect our 3 men and women on patrol. But we have to find a mechanism within our taxation structure to do that. And that is what this proposal for millage language does. If this proposal isn't explaining to people in a way that they can understand it, then we need to change that language. But this is not a done deal. This is just the first step in approving ballot language. And if we don't approve ballot language, there is no election on this question in February or any other time. So if, we want to vote on this, then we have to approve ballot language. But that doesn't mean we're approving the millage. We're just approving the language. And I can see, I'm hoping that that's registering. We're not trying to push a tax or a millage on anybody or down anybody's throat. We're each going to vote on that individually ourselves as taxpayers. Some of us are in a better position than others to pay, different levels of taxes. Everybody has their reasons for voting yes or no. You vote on school millages, and we decide as a community if we're going to approve or not approve a school millage. And there's always the argument between young families and seniors. Young families have kids in the schools. They tend to vote yes on raising school millages. Seniors tend to have fixed incomes, and sometimes their grandchildren don't live in the community, and they tend to vote no on those millages. But it always comes out that the community makes that decision. So this is my 2 cents worth, but I just want to say we're not trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. We're trying to give the people an opportunity to make these decisions as a community. And that's why we propose ballot language. And actually, it was read by the police liaison because the language came from the work of the police commission, the police department, and the police liaison to the township board. We did not, none of us here dictated any of this prior to what we're talking about tonight.
Well, there was a few more though in there, just so you know. There was some from the board here. There was the township attorney and the township manager. They were included in it.
Yeah, I think Ute's point
Just
is
a-
that
Point is,
the board
who
doesn't
wrote
make
the
up.
language.
No, I understand the point. I just want to make sure you're not singled out by, we're the ones that did it, period. That's not the way it worked.
Heil.
I have a question. So Derek, I know traditionally, as Ute laid out, we've done 1 mil increases when things like this have come up. Would we still have to include the DDA and brownfields? I know that's not on what we're discussing tonight, but if we only did a 1 mil increase, would we still have to include that DDA and brownfield language?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
From
would.
based on what
But the DDA only gets from the businesses on Macomb Street.
Yours and mine,
Yours
they're
or
not
ours
getting
or anybody else with a private or anything that's not on Macomb Street.
So,
But
yeah.
it's every millage.
Yeah, understand, DDA does not get all of what you pay in taxes. That'd all go, unless you have a business on Macomb that's paying taxes. That money in that district, for those taxpayers in that district, is where that 70,000 comes from. It doesn't come island-wide. If you're not living in the district, none of your money is going to that.
Go ahead, sorry.
I was whispering to Kyle, and I don't want anyone to think I was just whispering. The DDA, the businesses in the DDA then use that money through the DDA to fund projects like the murals on Macomb Street, the art on Macomb Street, road improvements, lighting, the new master plan for development on Macomb Street. So once the businesses on Grosse decided to form a DDA, the businesses in that district then also decided that a portion of their tax dollars would be dedicated for them to do these projects.
As informing the DDA, it's by law. By law. It's not by anybody.
I understand.
Anybody that has.
I understand how the DDA is funded.
So-
I just was curious because I've never seen this language before. So I'm just wondering how maybe the one mills get, the previous ones got through without this sort of language, and or if we would apportion what is the allocated millage towards that instead of the police. I'm thinking through different things of how to deal with that language. But I'll just say I'm struggling. I want to hear, I'm interested in what Mr. Pletcher has to say because I know he's been involved with the police before. I'm struggling with this. Overall, you all know this. Part of why I think I was appointed here was I care very deeply about trust and building trust. I feel like we bungled this process as long as I've been on the board. We've known that the police have needed a millage for at least as long as I've been on here. We finally have gotten to this point. I feel like we're just not ready for prime time on it, at least what I'm feeling right now from just the language, everything. I do want something to get done before our next meeting because I would like to get something before the February vote. So I'm hopeful. I don't know. I'm hopeful we can figure something out tonight. Overall, what I'll say is I'm hearing everyone say, oh, it's up to the public once we put this out there. But the fact is that we as the board are the ones that decide the strategy for how these millages get put forward. And what I think is really important for everyone to understand is the reason we're approaching this in this way is for, a long time, police funds and general funds have been intermingled. And generally it works, but when things start to get tight, as Headley starts reducing things, it starts to get a little bit complicated. And I'll say it is a worthwhile goal to try to separate police funding from general township funding. That is something that's worthwhile. So that is the attempt here. In general, I would support that. I think what I'm seeing in practice is really hard. It's going to be really hard to message this. I'm seeing, and so I'm just struggling with it a lot. Is what I'm feeling right now.
Yeah, and Kyle, I'll mention because that's exactly what we're trying to do. Because if we were to go with just a straight 0.5% or half mil, 1 mil, whatever, we would now have 6 different mills, which I guarantee the majority of the people in this township don't understand that. The thing I hear all the time is every election there's a police millage. Didn't we just vote on a police millage? They don't understand how many are out there. And quite frankly, this should have been done long ago. But it needs to be done, I think, and put them on their own and make it easier for them in the future. It certainly would help. It would be better for the township. When you think that we have and it's a 1.85 allocated millage because of Headley, we collect less than that. But it's 1.85 plus a 2 mil operating millage, and the township, the general township, gets none of that. It all goes to the police. We're operating on fumes, and just like their expenses grow, so does the expenses of the general township. But we don't have any revenue stream because they're taking it all, which is what we've decided. So that's the reason that we want to get that, so that they're on their own and that we could have a little breathing room and possibly have something. It's unfortunate that with that allocated, it's just going to be there. It's going to be there for the future. 2 boards from now, we'll be able to come back and revive the allocated millage that's there. So there's no way to get around it. There's no way to get around that. Because we can say, we're not going to touch the allocated. That'd be good for another year. It's, we can't put something making future boards not do it. So those are the constraints that we have. That's, I just want to explain it. Go, Carl?
Couple of things. First of all,
Right.
virtually every meeting we hear that it is the commissions that act for and on behalf of and start the issues that are presented to this board. In this case, it's the police commission that proposed, and we're here to dispose. They've proposed a millage for 6.9%.
6.9 mils.
I'm sorry, 6.9 mils for tonight for this board to consider. Virtually every meeting, there's the discussion that, well, among a number of people up here, well, the commission are the experts, they know what's going on, and we should yield to their superior knowledge. I don't know what to do with the language in here because one of two alternatives are presented. The first alternative is that the language that is in here regarding the recapture by the Brownfield Authority and the Downtown Development Authority should have been in every millage that we have had since they were created. Every millage since they were created. And what this is, as I understand it, is our council telling us you're going to have transparency, what GIDA and GECA have asked for years, and your platform has been. That was never done. That was never done. Nobody ever told me in the 66 years that I've lived here that part of what I vote for with police or fire or any of the other millages are going to be recaptured in a portion, a small percentage, but a portion, is going to be sent back to the DDA or the Brownfield Authority, and we're just not going to tell you about it. I find that absolutely incredible that we have been doing this as business as usual for decades. And now that we have council coming in and telling us that's not transparent, that's not honest, that's not right. I'm glad to have that discussion. But we have 13 months ago voted 6-0, I was not here, I was out of town, to replace our then existing township attorney with new counsel. When we interviewed, the rankings came out with current counsel as number 1. And she has done, from everything I've seen, a very, very good job. And this is transparency beyond anything we've had before. It's not a shift and shaft tax. It's not a taxation without representation. It's truth and honesty in terms of what we, the people, all of us, are going to pay for when we vote for a tax. Now, Trustee Porcerelli has indicated he's talked to counsel that says we don't need to do that. Well, we pay a heck of a lot of money for our attorney to give us an opinion. And if there's an opinion out there that is different, then Joe, I want to see that opinion. I want to see it in writing so that we can present it to her and say, Kirsten, what are you screwing up on? What are we missing? What's going on here? I want to see that before I vote on this. If you've got an opinion out there, I'm not going to take a verbal. I want to see something in writing because if we're violating the law, I want to know it before I vote. And if what we're doing right now is actually the right way to go, as much as I don't like the work that's going to be done to take and explain all of this to everybody out there that votes, it is incumbent upon those who propose the millage, the police commission. They propose, we dispose. Educate, educate, educate. A decade ago, I sat with Mr. Zelasko and with Mr. Porcerelli and Mr. Anderson, who is the chair of the commission. And we spent an awful lot of time and an awful lot of sweat and toil to educate the public on what they were going to get. The language in here, I don't like it because it doesn't do the job in terms of educating. If Mr. Porcerelli is right and we don't need that language, I still think transparency requires it. I don't think that the citizens get to think that we're voting for 6.9 mils, and now all of a sudden you're only actually getting 6.88 or 6.89 or 6.99. That's not fair. So I want an answer, and I want a written opinion from whoever has been giving the counsel so that we can go back to our attorney Kirsten and say, who's right, who's wrong? When I stand up in front of a judge and I go to court, today it was by a Zoom hearing, and the judge says, I want to hear your position and I want to hear your authority for that. I have to give a written explanation and a written basis for that. I want that because I want to know that we're doing the right thing. And if she's wrong, let's get down to it. If she's right, let's understand it. The second thing is, I am absolutely amazed that we are taking all these millages and bundling them together with a large consolidated millage. But apparently in the last week and a half, it's become the Budney super millage. I don't recall voting for Budney for chief. And I don't recall voting that this would be some kind of a super millage, like we have a super cleanup fund. Good work, guys, but it's a consolidated. And when we are putting those kinds of terms and those kinds of names on a millage, you're playing with fire with what I consider to be one of the hallmarks of Grosse Township. And that is coming out and having solid public safety. Let's not scare people. Let's go ahead and call it what it is, a consolidated millage. I don't like the idea of scaring and putting this out there as Jim Budney's project. I'm not going to vote for it because Jim Budney likes it. I'm not going to vote for it because he doesn't like it. I'm going to vote for what I think is best for the township, and if transparency is the cause of the day, then by God, let's get down to it. I look at the 70,000 recapture for the DDA in the brownfield. I don't like it. I pay my taxes. My wife and I pay an awful lot of taxes, as do all of you. Every last one of you pays a lot of taxes for your property. But the law is that the DDA and the brownfield have exemptions for the people in those areas, for the businesses in those areas. I get that. If that's the law, that's the cost of us doing business. I don't like it, but I have to pay for it. Mr. NATO sends me a letter on Valentine's Day and says, oh, by the way, your taxes are due February 14th. I get the same thing in September. If it wasn't Mr. NATO, it would have been Mr. Van Oz or someone else before them. I might not like it, but I do like the fact that we have transparency. Now, when I look at the fact that we are sending, Ann Darsnick used to say this all the time. You'd sit down with Ann in her office, you maybe have a cup of coffee, and you say, Ann, can you explain to me your theory on 100% of our allocated and 100% of our general fund go to the police? And she says, Carl, it's simple. Your millages are A, B, C, D, E. They make up this much. The township allocated makes up the difference between what they have and what they need and what they spend. And I don't care whether you call it an allocated or operational or anything else. I think what the police commission has done is to simply say, this is the true cost of what public safety, police side of that building is for. And I think that's commendable. We should know what we're voting for. But there is nothing in this that I am seeing that says that we should somehow not tell the people that by law part of this money, and I don't care whether it's a penny or $70,000, a lot of money, is going to be going to DDA in brownfield. We should know that.
So if you're going to vote for 6.9 mils, understand where that money is going. Does this language need to be clarified? I think we're going to know probably within 48 or 72 hours when Mr. Porcelli gets that written opinion back. That we're going to know.
Right on that for you.
You let me know, because I'm very
I sure
serious. I don't
will.
intend to vote for something.
I'll get right on it for you, Carl.
I would hope that you would. When you make a recommendation,
I wish you were more
you make a
genuine when you
statement,
speak.
then I want to know that.
I wish you were more genuine, because here's the problem. The problem is confusion equals a no vote. I didn't say we voted for 40 years here on millages that did not have to be in there. We can explain it when, and by the way, it's not the police department's job to come up with this infomercial. It's the township's job. It's the police department to come up with the numbers. This is the first time the police department's ever been tasked with coming up with everything, including the language, Carl. Never, ever, ever has any department ever had to come up with the language. Ever. Ever. I'm not saying something silly going on here, but I'm saying I wish you would understand. I mean, I get it. I get what you're saying. Their job is to come up with that 6.9 to run the department, but the more simplistic and less confusion equals less no votes, because as this gentleman right here said, if it's confusing, I'm done. It's over. All I'm trying to do is get what that gentleman in the corner needs. It's the one behind you, sir. If you think I'm looking at you. You just got promoted.
Run!
The gentleman in the back corner, what he needs, that's our job. But let me tell you, every time I did give you a written opinion on one of the other issues she did, and no one wanted to hear it. So anyway, the point is, I just had to go out to see why is all this in there. Just like, Derek, can you please explain? It says 5 various voted on millages. It's only 4. See, those are the kind of things that are screwing people up. It's only 4 voted on.
Well, I think it says 5 various voter-approved millages and township operating and allocated millages.
Right, but that makes only 4 though, not 5.
No, it's 5.
Includes the allocated.
5 voted on?
No,
It's the allocated.
He
Which
said,
is not voted on. Yeah.
That's the confusion, that's
Well,
my point.
And that's the point.
There is my
That's the
point, we're all confused on a number again. So, anyway, why don't we just call the question and take the vote?
Well, no.
How about we do this?
No, I want to know when the written opinion is going to
Oh,
be
it's
received.
on the
Oh,
way,
oh.
and I'm gonna give it to you, and whichever way you want it.
Written would be fine.
Joe,
Oh, yes, sir.
what I want to ask you is, what do you want to do with this? Would you rather table this?
Yeah,
Because
'cause
I'm looking to you.
I'm voting nay tonight. I'm telling you, I'm voting nay because I'm not happy with the language. So you guys decide, if you have 4, look, you guys have 4 votes to go with it, then you might as well go with it. If you do, don't.
Are you kidding me? I'm not going to vote for this if you're not going to vote for
See,
this.
I'm
You're
voting
the
nay.
police liaison. So if
what
we
I'm
fund
saying.
our police department or not, the language has to be approved. And if we're not going to approve this language tonight, someone come up with some better language.
And that's why I'm saying, do we want to table this until the next and work on this language?
That's fine, till,
And-
on the November 27th.
Yeah.
That's fine with me
I
then.
mean, that's why I'm asking you what you want to do, because this is yours.
Well,
I mean, it's the police, so you're the liaison, so it's your,
No, I
your
understand what you're
motion.
saying. No,
Yeah,
I'm
so not-
very,
So,
and I respect your votes if we were voting. I'm
and
just telling you.
I mean, it doesn't sound like you want, you're gonna vote for it, you don't want to, it's yours. I wanna, if you're not good with it,
Let's make it
Can
good.
well, sorry. Yeah, that sounds, I mean, I'm good with tabling, I'll just say personally. But if we're tabling it and trying to bring something forward for our next meeting, I just want to say, I'm seeing 3 different things that are happening with this millage. First is to separate out the police funds from general funds, which again, I support. Second is to fund the police fully to the level that they're able to provide the services that they should. For me, that's the priority, right? And third, what's coming up here is new legal language that's hard to communicate to the public. So for me, I know this is not the direction things have gone in. I would, as a trustee, just suggest another possible just straight 1 mil increase on this, because then we can just focus on the priority of funding the police just fully. and then try to work on we'd also have to work on that language of the DDA in Brownfield, because that would be included in that 1 mil. So that'd be two things we'd have to achieve with that millage in education, and then try to consolidate later. I'd even be willing to consolidate at another election next year and put that forward. So try to do it in 2 steps, because I think both of those are important. And I'll say this, in terms of the allocated millage, which is something that folks are concerned about, there's no way, from what I understand, to separate out police funding without excluding that allocated millage, which would always allow any township board to put that in any way. So for me, I will say I understand that's worrisome. I've learned since I've been up here, like with the 1% fee, et cetera, whoever you do elect to the township board can do things like that. So for me, that might be an unpopular opinion, but I would say it's worth separating out the police funding and leaving that allocated millage there. So anyway, it's all complicated stuff. This is really complicated stuff, I'll just say, and hard to message. But I would support kind of a 2-step process of first making the case for why police need funding, and second, separating out police funding from everything else. That's my personal opinion.
If I could also just add, this language removed 3 other separate voted millages. Okay, the 0.75.
3 police.
The 3 police millages. A portion of those, whether it was, those millages were paid by the businesses on Macomb. And so a portion of those millages was recaptured for DDA. By taking those away, you've taken away the funding for the DDA attributable to that millage on those businesses. So you kind of have to assure, if you're a business owner on Macomb and you take away a couple of millages, you've taken away DDA money by virtue of those individual millages going away. It's being replaced with another millage. So it assures everybody, including the police, who aren't going to get, they're not going to get 100% of 6.9. They're going to get 6.9 minus, let's just call it 70,000. And it also assures the DDA and their membership that they're not going to lose $70,000, that it's being replaced because we're taking away those other millages. That's.
David, are you saying it's not in a ratio? If we have 1 millage that handles, let's just say, let's just make it easy, 5 mills, or we have 5 separate 1 mil millages, isn't
There's
it?
recapture on all of them because the businesses on Macomb.
No, I'm saying,
pay
isn't
all
the
of them.
5 mills the exact same as all 5 separate millages combined?
Not necessarily. It depends on what their frozen Headley amount is, how long that millage has been in effect.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
There's some.
Thank you. No, that's.
It's not as easy as.
You're right, that's not easy either.
1 plus 1.
Nothing's easy.
Right.
But before Mr. Budney sums this up, I want to say to Kyle, I appreciate what you're saying, but that is exactly why 20 years down the road, we're still adding on a millage, 1 mil here, 1 mil there for police, and we'll get up to 6 or 7 or 8 individual police millages because nobody can pull together the team, as it were, to say, let's consolidate this and separate the 2 millages. And so over, I don't know how many years we've seen this happen over and over again. The political will ends up evaporating with the applause. And we go back to, well, let's just add 1 more millage. And so next time we'll have 6 or 7 individual police millages. But that's why things happen the way they do.
Yeah, well, and again, I would like to still do that next year, like do the increase and then the consolidated, because we have 4 elections next year, so I'd want to do them ideally in 2 separate elections next year.
Well, we actually only have 3 because we don't have a May election. So we got February, August, November.
One of the 3, yeah.
A May would be a special at a cost of
Whatever it costs.
whatever it cost us to run an election.
Well, it's gone up because we have to do early voting.
Oh,
Right.
So then, well, that's what I'm saying,
So-
February we do, this is my suggestion
Yeah.
personally, I'm not saying for the board, February a 1 mil, and then August you do a consolidated. That would be my personal suggestion to try, because I agree, this has been pushed down the road too long. It's made it really difficult, I think, for both the township and the police to properly budget. So I do want to, within this board, try to separate out police funding so everyone's clear about who is responsible for what.
But in the end, we'll do what we have to do to make sure, in the end, we'll do what we have to do to make sure police have their funding. You know, at the end of the day, that's what we all want. We just need to find a way to do it.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'm going, okay, you weren't saying vote on it.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to say that we have a motion before us on police millage language, and I'm going to ask that we table that until the November 27th.
That's fine. Just a point of clarification. So is the marching order with regards to modifying the proposed language or modifying the proposed plan? Because the millage language is the plan for the millage, right? So this is about the 6th or 7th iteration of this millage language. I mean, it's been through the ringer a couple of times. Unless there's specific direction one way or the other, I need specific direction as to which one you want to move
You're
forward.
absolutely, and I will say that I'm tired of seeing the can kicked down the road. I would want to see, the wording that we have here, if we can make it clearer for the people to do that. That's what I would, I mean, that's me. That's what I would want to see.
Well, and again, as Carl said, whether or not Joe does it or you, but let's make sure that we're on the right footing with our legal opinion.
Well, and that'll be
I mean,
taken
obviously,
care of
I have a
tomorrow.
lot of faith in our township attorney, and she has cleared up a lot of language for other parts of our township, including some of our police ordinances and so forth. We've congratulated her on that process. So, and her team, obviously, she's not doing this alone. So the fact that we are updating and getting smart about our ballot language, but I want to know, like Carl said, if there's an opposing opinion, and if we're being led astray, then we should know that too.
Yeah, well, we'll address that tomorrow.
Well, because in 3 weeks, residents will be up here telling us we were not transparent by removing that language.
Well-
So I just want to make
Well,
sure
and we'll
we're
have,
doing
just
the
like
right
we
thing.
did tonight, we'll have an explanation of why. That's what you have to have. You can't just sit there and say nothing. So we'll have that explanation. We'll get in touch with Kristen tomorrow and get this cleared up as to the absolute why it has to be in there. It makes sense based on things that have said. It does explain to the people. It explains that money's going here. I'm not sure it explains exactly what it means. And
That's the
the
difference. Jimmy
confusion,
just hit
and
it.
that's the-
And I just
that's
want to
the-
make it clear.
yes.
I'm not going against Kristen. She's the attorney. It is what it is.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's not about transparency. It's about clarity and
Clarity
about
here.
understanding, because no clarity means no vote.
That's right.
That's all I'm saying.
That's right. And,
It's not
and the
about-
gentleman that said, if I can't understand it, I'm voting against it, absolutely right. I mean, I would do the same thing.
I mean, I'll say, and I know this might put a lot of work on everyone, if there's any way possible to try to get also language for like a possible 1 mil increase before next meeting. I know that's something I'd like to try and see ahead of next meeting, just to see if it would even look better, in terms of the language,
Oh, it'd be much simpler, so of course it'd look better. I mean, that's what we've been doing all along.
Well,
So,
it
but
would-
we can,
it
but
would
to
include
your
the-
point,
Yeah.
to your point.
Yeah, because if we,
Plan B.
yeah, Plan B for next meeting if we can't get the consolidated
Yeah.
millage. And to hold myself accountable too, I've used the word super mill too. I've heard it around, so I think consolidated is a more accurate term.
Yeah, and
I
because
like
that is
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
It's not, that was coined by a group.
I've heard lots of different people say it, yeah, but I like consolidated. It's
All
a
right.
more accurate term.
So Do I need a?
We need a motion and a second and a vote
Okay.
to table.
Okay, I mean, so I'm going to make a motion that we table the recommended Township Board approval of police millage language.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? This is tabled.
Okay.
Thank you. Good thing there was only one action item.
Yes.
All right, so that brings us back. What did-
no,
Oh, yeah, I
no,
thought you were
I'm
saying
reading
something.
now.
I'm sorry. That brings us back to public comment. Same thing, three minutes, your name and address, and Kathy. Oh, I'm sorry, please come forward. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name's Lori Vogel, and this is my husband, Ed Vogel, and I understand that R1E is being tabled for a future discussion, but would just like to take a few minutes to give you a little bit of background on the situation. So we made a significant investment of our time and our resources to purchase the home next door to us. You can see the original home that was purchased was in a very poor state. 10.5 months later, it's completely turned around. In between our homes was this area, this land that was, the waterfront had dead trees. There were rodents that lived there. We did as much as we could to recover the waterfront, but we can't put a dock or anything in there because of the way that it's zoned. So that's pretty much what we can do. And then just on the other side, you can see that on both sides, as you look toward the north and toward the south, it's much different. So what we've requested in our area, there's an 80-foot minimum for the frontage requirement. However, if you split a lot, R1E then comes into play, and it requires 125 feet, which is really dampening investors and what we can do to help promote and pay more taxes toward things like what we talked about tonight. What we were proposing is the parcel B in the middle. You can see that it is larger than both parcels on both sides, so it's larger, the largest lot in those three. But again, because of R1E, it isn't 125 feet, and that's why we had to go through this process. We took it, whoops, you probably can't see that, but we took it to the Zoning Board of Appeals. There was a great conversation. The majority of the commissioners, not only did they approve for it to be recommended for approval, but also they talked about R1E and what it's doing to our community. To try to bring something like this forward is quite a lot of effort in this community. I just want to explain that survey I showed you. We had to have it revised 3 times, and we had to pay each time because there was something added that we need something different. I submitted a FOIA request. In fact, I submitted it 3 times, and each time the township, as allowed by law, asked for an extension. I didn't get an answer on if any of these types of requests had been approved. But yet, when we came into the first meeting, Brian Borden spoke of a 5-acre parcel that had been previously approved. It would have helped me to know that, so that when we created this, we could have cited that. I still haven't gotten a copy of that, and I was told to submit another FOIA request, so that would be the 4th with the same question.
Excuse me, was the FOIA for the same thing that you had asked for before?
Yes, I submitted the same FOIA request 3 times because I didn't get an answer to my FOIA request. Sometimes I got a partial answer, so I had a number of questions, and maybe one was answered, and the others were not. So in our packet, we had included information, Mr. Thiel, on the utilities. I thought I wasn't going to go through it all, but I thought it was, since there was so much talk about taxes.
You have 30 seconds.
Okay. I included what the tax increase would, a buildable lot would allow as a tax increase. And it would generate $20,000 more for the township and for things like schools. Mr. O'Donnell, our tax assessor, wrote a note asking for it to be approved, stating that the advantage to split the lot is to get rid of excess property and create a buildable lot, which would benefit the township and the schools because of the extra tax dollars. So I know this is going to be tabled for a future discussion. I'd love to share more with you about the challenges it takes to bring these things forward. And I can't understand why this isn't a win-win for the township and for investors and for the community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy, you ready?
Kathy Walker, 26051 Thorpe Court. We're going to change the tune for a few minutes, then we might go back. I want to publicly thank Chief Carmack and the GIPD and the very generous people of Grosse who donated blankets, towels, polar fleece. We have a real nice turnout, didn't we, Chief? Yeah, and so it's going down to the Detroit Humane Society, so they'll have something warm to sleep on. They don't have it as good as our pets, especially Sailor. But I'm so pleased that everybody responded beautifully. It was very nice. Now, so that's the good stuff. Now, the question I've got, Jim, you kept saying that we didn't have any money. How much money is that COVID money left?
How much is left?
Yeah.
What is left or how much has been allocated?
Wasn't it like 9.7 or something allocated, and how much is left?
Well, I guess, allocated to projects already. So,
yeah, but how much?
For example, we have like a $300,000 project for the fuel tanks at the police department. That project is under contract, but we haven't incurred much in the way of expense.
What do you got left?
Yeah. So we have probably unallocated $150,000, something like that.
Okay, but you started with what, like 9.7 or something?
Something like that. Yep.
Okay, so there was some money. It's just been allocated different places.
Correct.
But I remember about a year and a half ago when you guys were playing with the budget, and money kept going out of the police so that we couldn't have head count. Because remember, I kept saying we wanted the 24 people, we wanted the 3, and the money kept going other places. Yeah.
What money was going?
There was budget
we're
money.
Not going to get, and you just go ahead.
Yeah,
and
there
make
was
your
budget
comments.
money that had been redirected. And I'll get the exact details on it. I remember this distinctly because I kept saying, well, why are they moving the money around? And it always seemed to affect the head count. So I'm hoping that, and I'm excited that you're going to bring back the 24, I'm like that. But there have been things that we could have done that perhaps fell through the cracks and could have been done, maybe spent more wisely. I can remember that Splash Park wasn't so wise a few years ago, and things like that. There's always money that gets wasted, as we all know, and then we try to fix it. But anyways, I was happy to see tonight that everybody took this serious, and it's going to make it as simple as possible because most people don't have the financial background like you have, David. I have, and it was confusing to me. And I'm sitting here going, what the hell? So if you make it simple, just put it, and give the police what they need, of course, but make it simple so the people don't feel that there is something being, because the last thing you guys need is more bad press. Let's leave it at that. Okay? Have a nice evening. Thank you again, everybody, for donating.
Thank you, Kathy. Kevin?
Kevin Flavin, Park Lane. And so I think one of the issues here is, and I've been asking for this since you started as supervisor, having a communication commission. And we don't have a communications commission, and this is a perfect example of what a communication commission would do. they would take this bad language for this particular millage and they would fix it so that the people could understand what the heck's going on. So, and the other thing is, at least on Facebook, there are a lot of people that don't trust you, the four people that vote in combination normally. So, and there have been other situations where you ask for a road millage and almost the next meeting you ask for a 1% increase to pay for miscellaneous whatever. And then Mr. Bletcher. So I got the impression that what you were saying is how important the commissions are, and you're following the commission's recommendation. Is that correct? Okay. Well, if commissions are so important, and the four of you all think commissions are so important, as I do too, Mr. Bletcher, you have selective memory. When the police board recommended a chief 3 times, you voted no for that recommendation. When the police commission questioned the deer call, you voted to remove 2 commission members who, yes, you removed 2 commission members. When the police commission, well, you voted to remove 2 police commission members when over issues concerning the police commission, and I think it turned into a lawsuit which cost the township $187,000, and that, don't understand that. And the police, or I believe the township lost money, or lost the lawsuit too. So tonight you've decided to go with the police commission, it sounded like. So I don't understand, just don't understand that. Over a year ago, we knew that there was going to be a deficit and the police would need more money. And you brought the road millage before the police millage. And I think that that was an unfortunate situation because we could have had this taken care of a long time ago.
Thank you, Kevin. Anyone else? Oh.
Young lady.
Young lady first. And she's quicker than you.
Luann McElwain.
Can you put that down so we can see her? Derek, could you help with that?
Oh.
This isn't as quick,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Luann McElwain from Sunnybrook Lane. I'm hearing over and over again, education of the public regarding the millages. Maybe we should consider some breakout sessions to the public so that they can come and ask you specific questions and you can have a dialogue in between yourselves and the community.
Thank you. Write that down, Doug. Who is next? Go ahead, Mark. Hi, Mark.
Hi. How are you?
Okay, how are you doing?
You guys are right now. I just want to express my appreciation for everybody's comments, Joe's comments, and you guys tabling the issue. I know for me, it would have been, Mark Mills, West River. I know it would have been for me, it would have been confusing as well, although I kind of follow it and understand it to a point. But I think overall, you probably would have lost that millage if you would have gone through with the specific language that's in there now. So it's a good idea to at least go through and try to make it a little more, at least try to clarify it for the public in general. I also want to touch on the Vogels, who were up here a few minutes ago. They have an issue, they already explained it. It was basically boiled down to R1E. It went through the Planning Commission, which you said, correct? Yeah. With no issues. They met all the criteria, 9 out of 10, and passed through. It was up to the zoning board, which is the board that I sit on. And based on the language, based on the ordinance, and based on what was presented, although it was a tough decision to make, I also had to vote no on that. Didn't really want to, but based on what was in front of us, that's what I had to do. I'm not sure what's going on with R1E. If you guys are actually going to take under consideration about maybe, I don't know, going to revamp it, pull it out of the master plan. I know the master plan's being redone. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I would ask that the board and anybody who involved, and if I can be of assistance, I will. I really think that we need to take a good hard look at that. They might have made sense 20 plus years ago, but I think that's something we need to take a look at now. 100 foot of frontage on Southpointe, in my opinion, should be more than enough property to have a buildable home or buildable property. But as the ordinance, as it's written right now, it simply cannot happen in that district. So if you guys would, I support the Vogels, even though unfortunately I had to say to vote no on your proposal, and I apologize for that, or your appeal. But I would strongly urge the board to take a good look, a hard look at R1E and see if there's something we can do with that. Thanks, that's it.
Thank you, Mark. And yeah, that's something that it'd have to start with the planning commission, not us. It wouldn't start with us, which Kyle can bring up to them. But therein lies the problem. It is the law. It is our rules. We have to follow our rules. If the rule isn't any good, we can't ignore it. It needs to be changed. You can't just ignore it. So, okay, thank you, Mark, again. There was somebody over here. It's Bill.
Bill Heil, East River Road. I want to talk about the police millage situation. A couple of quick points. I listened to what everyone had to say. I agreed with some, I didn't agree with others, and that doesn't matter really. The real question is, where do we go from here, and do we cooperate with each other to make progress for the people of this community? I've talked with, or I listened rather, to what Joey had about his attorneys. He had two of them. One of them, I believe, the Michigan Township Association employs for their practice for what they're doing. If that man provides you a letter, he's giving you somebody with heavy credential. And I just wanted to make that clear. So I didn't think he was fooling around when he said that, if I heard that correctly. But getting that language straight is important, because if people can understand it, they will have confidence in you, and your reputation will be enhanced by that. And the police do need the money. Our community wants that. And so I'm thinking that it was a wise choice to postpone this a bit. I think that there's enough complexity to this, that idea of 1 mil now, which adds another mill, and that's what we've always done, is more of the same. But if we agree that it's temporary, and if we seriously study the issue and come to understand it and agree on something that will benefit the township budget and the police budget, then we've made progress. But I've listened for hours. I've been in this here, and there's a lot of issues that need to be discussed and reviewed. And maybe somebody will think of another idea on another day and have to go get another expert witness on it. So trying to put that up against the February goal line, I'm not sure I trust we could have our act together on this whole thing in that short a period. We might, but the way I've been listening to all these what-ifs, I'm not sure. So I'm recommending that, some new language be there that'll help you get the issue passed. Make sure you have your presentation together right. We seldom get this many angry people. You're going to have to handle that. Then when you get that together, then take care of these other issues as time permits through into the coming year. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Light on again there? Yeah.
Should be good.
Okay.
Cool.
Just want to reference the millage again as I speak here. First of all, could somebody please converse with our friend Mr. Andy Kendrivas? unless that's going to be in your report, is department committed to giving Grosse a public presentation with Q&A during the year of 2023, and the calendar year is about to run out? I'd like to know when we can expect that, because we're looking forward to it, okay? I'd like to thank all the people who came tonight and all the people who faxed in their support of what we were talking about tonight. It's very important that the community does participate. I don't think anybody was premature here. Us, you, anyone. You're looking at a timeline here, simply November 27th, you're going to try and get this together. I think you got to have it to Mr. Friel by the 5th of December, and you're trying to get it on the ballot for February 27th. And during this time, you're going to do an education program and so on and so forth. So nobody was premature. It's a lot of work to do in a short period of time. You always have to look at your calendar. You can make commitments and promises, but can you really complete them in the time you're allowed? This is not, in my opinion, it is difficult, but it's not that difficult. One of the issues here is the allocated millage. That millage has always been, for over 20 years, dedicated to the police department. Sure, the board with a vote of 4/3 can take the money back anytime, whether it's in the millage or whether it's out of the millage. But I don't think anybody on the board is going to commit political suicide and try and take that money away after it's already in the budget for the police department, like it's been nestled all these years. And if you leave the allocated millage in there and you rescind your other ones, you're going to make this whole thing a lot simpler. Your general is going to be due, I think, in 2031. The allocated, you don't have to worry about it being renewed because it doesn't renew. It automatically runs. So if you add your 4th operating millage now, as Mr. Debussier said, which I think is a great idea, let's get our police department out of harm's way. Let's get them the money that they need, and then let's look at doing a dedicated millage. Yes, we need a dedicated millage. It's been talked about for years. The problem is all of these come up at different renewal dates, and we are subject to confusing the public and running the risk of losing one. But let's get the millage in place for the police department now, and then go back and look at how we're going to do this. And then tell the people, look, we have something here much simpler, much easier to understand, and it's at no cost because you already got your mill. We should have went out for the mill last year, I agree, but we didn't. So now we got our backs up against the wall. Well, let's get our police department out of harm's way. Let's go after the one mill, get their money, and then start looking at this dedicated millage. And I suggest you leave the allocated where it is because you're going to make the whole program much, much simpler and a lot less risk. Thank you.
Welcome back, Greg.
Oh, thank you. Greg Karmazin, Easter. First of all, I want to commend the board. I thought it was a good discussion and a good decision tonight to take another look at this and hopefully come back with some clearer language and focus on just funding the police in a way that we know if the community is presented with a simple, straightforward proposal, it's highly likely to pass. So, but I do want to address a few things that came up in the course of discussion. First of all, This is a document that the township created and was presented at the Police Commission special meeting on November 1st. And as you can see on the chart, the term super millage was from the township's document. So don't want anybody to think that that was something that was created by the Grosse Taxpayer Association or somebody else on Facebook. This came right from a township document. And quite frankly, from talking to various members of the Police Commission and other, say, credible sources, it was conveyed to me unanimously that this was not something the police commission thought up. This idea of a super millage did not come from the police commission, okay? And specifically, the 0.5 mil on the of the allocated millage, collecting that was not something the police commission would even deal with, because of course they're proposing to fund the police through a consolidated millage. So that 0.5 wouldn't even have been something that they would have addressed. So I don't know if this, well, I would have to adjust that thing to get it right. But in any event, there's four problems that I see with the existing language. First of all, the language talks about replacing a 6.6 mils with a 6.9 mils. So the average person looking at this thinks that it's a 0.3 mil increase when it's actually a full mil. So I think that language is at least confusing. And if there's a way to clarify that by just making it 1 mil and not doing the consolidation right now of all these millages, I think that would solve that problem. The second thing is obviously the information that was presented to the police commission showed the 0.5 mils being collected by the township for some purpose other than the police. Now, if everybody on this board is saying they're not in favor of that, they won't support that, that's definitely reassuring. However, we all know that this authority would be subject to a change at any time for members of the board vote. So I think that that's what's troubling the people in the community, the idea that you could have a vote and raise taxes without a vote of citizens if this money was left collectible is a problem. And you know, there's an easy solution to that. This is a document, and I will commend Township Manager Derek Thiel. I had sent him a list of questions asking him to clarify a number of things, and he did. And he did a great job of it. It was very timely and very informative. And one of the most informative elements of his response is the reference to referred voter-approved millages could only be officially removed from the books upon expiration of millage or rescindment of each millage through ballot initiative. So what that confirms is what we discussed, Mr. Supervisor, at the police commission meeting. You and I talked about this. I brought this issue up of rescinding
And we
the
said
general.
we'd look into it.
Okay,
Which-
and now
we did.
we've confirmed that it is actually possible to rescind the general operating millage
As well as
if
the
you replace it.
as well as police millages.
Correct, yeah. So just pointing out that I think that this comes down to the two-step solution that Trustee DeBose recommended. Let's go out for the 1 mil, and as we've done with straight language that makes it clear to the voters that we want 1 mil for the police, properly fund them. And then the second step is, at a later election, we can consolidate the 3, actually 4, if the police millage passes, the 4 police millages, dedicated millages, leave the allocated millage for the police, as has been funded, as Mr. Zelasko has said, for years. And there you go. You've got your 6.8, 6.9, whatever it adds up to. And, you know, there's no authority then for the board to take any money that's left on the table in an uncollected millage, because we know that it would mean a severe cut to the police, and I don't think any members of the board want to do that. So I think that's the clean way to do this. Do it in a two-step process, and I applaud Trustee DeBose for bringing that up. Thank you.
Karmazin, may I ask a question, Mr. President?
Go ahead.
Mr. Karmazin, I understand where you're coming from, and I applaud the simple solution. The question is regarding the allocated millage. If we have a millage that is truly going to be dedicated, and I'm not against that, and Mr. Zelasko's right, we have been doing that for a long time. I don't know if that makes it right or wrong. Mm-hmm. But if the citizens have millage that this board is dedicating to police, that has been allocated by law or by voter initiative, but not for the police department, how do we get by the argument that that's not being transparent or that's not fair?
Well,
I'm understanding the allocated,
yeah.
but what's it allocated for? And
Well,
the
that's what you
question.
do during your budget process.
No, I understand.
You make it clear that police are a priority, and you fund them with that. That's why the allocate has been used for funding the police for years. I just think that if you want to, if you remove all the funding from the allocate, put it into dedicated police millages, and you allow millages to stay on the books, it's collectible by 4 votes, you're opening up the possibility that 4 members of this board could raise taxes without a vote of citizens, and that's what is so troubling to people in the community. They don't want that to happen, and this issue came up last fall in November when the 1% tax proposal was put to the board, and of
Well,
course
it was an administrative fee. It wasn't a tax.
Well, I mean, okay,
Isn't it
fee
tax?
or tax? It's the same. Point is, it would be on your tax bill.
Oh,
People
yeah,
would-
it would be another
Yeah,
payment.
it's a payment.
It'd be
It's
another
essentially
payment.
a tax
Yeah,
payment.
absolutely.
And it's the same principle. People don't want to be, the citizens want to control the ability to raise taxes on the island. Unless it's an emergency, unless it's a court order. I mean, there are caveats that obviously could put the board in position of having to act unilaterally. But through normal business order, I think the citizens that I've talked to, certainly what I've seen on social media, are unanimous that they want to have that control. And we've got a clear path to do it. All we have to do is do what we've done for years here, incrementally increase the police department's budget, and then at a later date, consolidate those police millages if there's an advantage to reducing the number of times voters have to vote on police millages. But to be honest with you, it has been working for many decades, so it's not exactly a burning issue, a burning problem here. I mean, voters support the police by a 3-to-1 margin usually on these millage votes. So, it looks to me, and it looks to many people that have examined this issue and how it got to this point, that this super millage was contrived so that the board would have the ability to use that allocated millage that would be replaced by the super millage to fund other things. And I believe the supervisor in the discussion acknowledged that the expenses of the township have gone up tremendously. And I don't dispute that. I don't dispute that. So maybe you should be putting a $500,000 out to the public and explain why you need it. I mean, I would rather see you do that than take a vote of 4 members of the board and do it. And
again, Greg, that was thrown out at the first meeting, never discussed again, but it has continued to float along and gotten to the point where it showed up on that document as like it's going to be done. Nobody's come to that conclusion yet. It's in a talking stage.
Mr. Supervisor, I understand that it doesn't happen until the voters act on, they would have to pass the millage, replace them, and then it could be done by 4 votes. And that's what people are worried about.
I understand what you're saying about worried about. And the allocated millage is always going to be there.
Right.
But one way to do it is what you said.
Yeah. And
That's
just one final point. I mean, I do support consolidating some of these police millages. I think it would be easier for the public to deal with maybe two millages versus 5. Okay, if this passes.
Potato.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, but one, I think a point is that we really just want to get to the point where the police are properly funded, and that if we acknowledge that the township needs money for other purposes, let's have that discussion. Let's see that proposal, put it out there. I think people are pretty reasonable here. They understand expenses are going up, but taxes have dramatically increased on Grosse. I certainly, as a taxpayer, am paying a record amount.
Welcome to Grosse, Greg.
But basically, again,
it's
you
the
got
highest ever.
to, our taxes increase not only because of millages, which our millages are pretty flat,
Property
actually.
values, I
It's
get
the
it.
value.
Right.
Our values keep going up, which is nice, which
Yeah.
everybody loves at a sale, hates while they're living there and paying taxes. But there's the two things that
Correct,
create
correct.
a
And I think the education process that you've all talked about, is going to help this, eventually pass. But I just encourage you to come back with a straightforward proposal like we've done in the past. Let's get this 1 mil for the police, get the 3 road patrols back on duty, get the 24 staffing level, and then move forward. And if we want to consolidate later, we can do that at no cost to the public. So, thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Greg, one quick question, if I may, before you go. Mr. DeBose has endorsed and pushed the idea that the police funding needs to be standalone, and we should have that. What do you recommend that we do then with the allocated millage?
Well, what I would say is don't consolidate the amount that comes from the allocated millage. Consolidate the others so that the board will have the pressure of having to fund the police department with 100% of the allocated millage. And if you need an additional operating millage, go to the public and ask for it and explain why you need it. One just final point too, and I know there's been some discussion in the community about, well, if the police millages were all dedicated, okay, then there's no way the board could monkey around with taking it from something else. Well, just thanks to Township Manager Thiel's response and other resources that I've consulted with, a board does not have to levy all of the authorized millages.
Correct.
So, right. So even if you moved all of the police funding into a dedicated millage, a future board, or even this board, doesn't have to levy all of those mills that are allocated. Are authorized rather. You could still move around money. You could still find a way to, let's say, build up another area of the budget by saving some money from the police budget. So, there are ways around that. It doesn't guarantee just because it's all a dedicated millage that it's going to be collected. So, I'm just thinking the way that we've doing this for years has actually worked quite well.
Greg,
Let's move on.
You can't move money. If you got money in a dedicated police millage,
yeah,
you get so much millage available.
Right.
You don't have to levy it all. But you can't move that money somewhere else.
Well, I mean, not literally from the dedicated millage, but I'm saying that if you wanted to collect less and actually collect from another, say the allocated millage or the general operating that aren't fully being collected, the public taxpayer wouldn't actually feel it. You would be in effect moving money, but you'd be doing it by just shifting the tax burden from the police to non-police activities. So you could actually do it. It's not literally taking money from the dedicated police millage and moving it to another purpose, but if you don't collect it and then you increase the general operating millage or the allocated millage, the taxpayer would actually be paying more for non-police activities. So it can be done.
But not very transparently.
No, it sure
you
wouldn't
would be
be.
doing a lot of shifting.
Can we please move on?
So anyways, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you for answering their questions. All right. Anybody else out there? All right. Let's move clerk's report, unless I missed somebody.
Unless you missed something. There is a Community Recreation Commission meeting on Thursday, December 7th at 6 p.m. here in the boardroom, and our new Assistant Director, Ash, will be there to meet with the public. The Community Rec met first Thursday in November. I unfortunately missed that meeting. We were at the International Wildlife Area celebrating the 25-year anniversary of basically saving Humbug Marsh, and John Hardig gave a very interesting history and discourse on that whole process, and it was very well attended. There were probably about 60 people present, and many of them actually present as kids when we first were able to secure that site. I just wanted to say one thing to Mr. Mills about the ZBA. Having served on the ZBA, and you too, Mr. Supervisor, it's really hard because you are very much restricted by what the law allows you to do, and there is a very profound misconception in the public that hardship means, you know, something personal like what you can't do with your land, but really the hardship rests on what is actually there in the land. What does the land allow or not allow? And so we always get this issue. So I think it's good that Trustee DeBose asked us to table that, because it gives us another chance to look at some other information and possibly find a different solution, because the Planning Commission did only approve it contingent on ZBA approval. And since the ZBA denied, I think most of us felt like we would have to deny. So I think we've got another chance to talk that over. So thank you for coming up and making that comment as well.
Is that your report? Thank you very much. Mr. Treasurer.
Thank you. We would have had, DPS was scheduled to meet tomorrow evening. That meeting's been canceled. And the Airport Commerce Park Commission will meet next Monday, November 20th at 6 o'clock in this boardroom. For the month of October, the township had a total of $19,640,000 invested, and these accounts generated a total of $85,400 in investment interest at an average daily rate of 4.02%. As always, the monthly investment account is posted on the treasurer's website at grosse.com. 2023 winter tax data is being compiled, and winter tax bills will be mailed out during the first week of December. The due date for the winter tax bill is February 14th, and those who qualify may apply for a deferment of the 2023 winter tax due date, and that will extend the due date to April 30th of 2024. You can contact the treasurer's office to receive a deferment form, or if you have questions on that aspect. All property owners will be mailed the original winter tax billing. Mortgage companies that are requesting bills for escrow accounts are mailed duplicate copies of the billing. And if you're unsure if your mortgage company is going to be requesting one, you can again contact the treasurer's office to verify that. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, David. Trustee reports. Joe.
Good evening. I sit on the police commission, and we meet third Tuesday of the month in the boardroom here at 7 o'clock. The one thing that going on with the police department this Thursday, we will be interviewing for the final interview before it comes to the township board for a new police officer. So that's a good thing. They've been working on that for a while, and that will happen Thursday night here in the boardroom. Got some good news, actually. I got some environmental issues I want to talk about. The first one's good news. I've had a 6-year issue with the Army Corps of Engineers. I've been fighting them to test the fields out here, and finally, I'm not going to get in too deep, but they were tested apparently, and they do say that the levels are safe. So I've been waiting for that for 6 years. They finally came up with that at the last meeting that we had here, and that's some excellent news. But I do want to say one thing is Kyle on the board here helped me immensely. He got in starting last year with me on this, And his contacts through the state were very, very helpful. And I got to be honest, I'm not sure I could have done it without you, Kyle, because our push for them in the last year, they finally did what they were supposed to do, or find what they were supposed to find, and come out with what they were supposed to come out with. And it couldn't be a better outcome. All I wanted to know was those fields were safe, and they are safe, which is an excellent thing. The next group that I'm on is the McLeod Steel CAG. That citizens group is very interesting because it has federal level individuals and state from Eagle. And Derek, before I asked, Eagle was formerly the DNR, is that correct? I'm sorry, not DNR, DEQ, which is the environmental for Michigan. And what they're testing now is the water that is the runoff water into our river, which is very important to us. Now, I get it that the water input, and maybe Derek knows more about this, is up north for the Detroit Great Lakes Water and Sewer, whatever it used to be. So their input for water, where they process it and send it to us, is up north. The intake is up north in the river there. But it's always important to know what's going in your river because they're right next to us and down to Monroe, and we need to be responsible and find that out. The next thing I did is Kyle asked me to follow up on something with this CAG, and Mr. Karmazin and Kyle were the ones that notified members of the CAG that there was that puddling of unusual looking water there. And I didn't realize that there's a lot of people that actually still bike to work. And they bike off the bridge there, and there's a lot of bikers and runners through that area. And the puddling that comes up after there's rains, obviously it's coming from underground somehow, and it was toxic. I don't want to get into what it is, but the one gentleman got slight burns on his leg from it, that it got splashed on his. It was a motorcycle. So the Eagle and members, or a member from the federal level for environmental, the EPA, they requested signs, and everybody at the group agreed on that. So here's the problem. Kyle asked me they're not around. The county, once again, and I realize, I know people, I was told here, you got to be nicer, you got to work with the county. But the county came out one time and said because there was no puddling, we're not putting signs out. We were stunned. The whole group was stunned when we got this information just last week. So Kyle, I will be following up on that, and unfortunately, whose department is responsible for it? Mr. Candrevis's. And it's not funny, it's the truth. Mr. Candrevis is not real happy with me anyway, but that's okay because I don't go away. You can ask the Army Corps of Engineers. I've been on them for 6 years, and I'm not going to go away. And the next step is, Kyle, I will check into that for you. We will see. They came out one time. Nobody on that board thought it was acceptable. That was just not acceptable because it comes when it rains. And it's about the safety of the people going by there. I know you think, well, who's running there now? They're still runners, they're still bikers, they're still people. And we need to keep people safe. That's all there is to it. The next step on this is, I think, Mr. Zelasko, did you ask about the public forum? I did send an email to Mr. Candrevis and maybe Mr. Budney, if you have anything on this.
I will have something to
Then
say.
I will let you. How about, is that all right?
That's fine.
I'm going to let you go on that because I just have a couple things here. And next board meeting, Derek and I have been working on the leadership and retention plan. And we're going to have some changes to be voted on from the policy end of it and also the management handbook. And that will come to you in your package. You'll be able to read that over if you feel that's correct. You guys can vote on it and give your opinion, whatever you feel. But that'll be coming next meeting. And I just have one last thing. I've got to ask this question. I talked to Brian. I get it that our emails are being blocked. And Brian explained to me on how to change that and how to go in and let people in. And I did let a couple people in. And, you got to go through a process. The problem I have is it's continuous. Is there any, look, I get it. It's not you. You're not doing it. It's the company. First off, I'm not sure why there's so many being blocked, but I feel embarrassed when people call me and say, or text me and say, I sent you an email. Did you get it? They're trying to be polite. I sent you some information, and it's on my Grosse, obviously.com email. Is there anything we can do to undo that? Is there anything that, can you help us out at all?
I mean, I can look into it further. VC3's been very adamant about not loosening it up any farther than they already have. I can go back to the drawing board with them.
How can we get people to?
I understand. I mean, obviously it happens to all of us. I get the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, if they look, let's just say they look somebody up, or they, even look Dave up and got a question on the funds. Well, they send Dave an email and it bounces back, and then Dave's got to actually go through the quarantine. And like I do, I have to go through my quarantine and see, did this young lady, she contacted me. I don't know her. She contacted me, so I have no way to get back at her. And then it's in the quarantine. Then I got to go through that list. I wrote it down, what you told me to do. And what was very unusual is one of the gentlemen sitting out here sent me something, and I did what you told me to do. We redid it, and then I started getting emails, and then it ended. And then now he's back into quarantine.
That is interesting. I mean, actually, I would say it loosened up for me lately, because most of those emails I read today came right to me.
Yeah,
Which is unusual. Usually they would all be in the quarantine, and actually all of them came. I didn't have to release one email of the 16 I read, which is completely opposite of what normally would happen. So
yeah, see, I just don't. I mean,
some I've had before, of course.
Okay,
but
I just thought I'd ask you if any other people on the board have been having a problem with this. It's just frustrating because I feel very bad. I mean, I have a personal policy. If you send me a text, I text you back. If you send me an email, I'll email you back. I mean, I try to get back with everybody that asks questions, and if I don't have the right question, I send. And unfortunately, Derek gets the brunt of some of my people, and I have to send them to Derek because I can't answer the questions. But I answer the email, or I answer the person, and I think that's what's important. So, if there's anything you can do, please. That's it.
Yeah, I'll check it with them.
Right.
I'll check in.
Okay. And I think that's it. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Joe. Along with that, I noticed our going in and looking at our drafts and everything of our packets. That page for some reason has changed, and if you wanna print it out, it takes forever for that thing to load before you can print it. And I was going to ask you about that, and I will tomorrow, why that changed. But yeah, that quarantine is, since they put that in, it adds a little work for us, for sure. Mr. Bletcher, if you would, please.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I have the privilege of sitting on the Fire Commission, and for the month of October, your volunteer firefighters responded to 55 EMS and 12 fire calls. Some good news, we had 17 members in the fire department 5 months ago. Chief Camilleri and the volunteers have been very actively recruiting. We now have 5 new volunteers within the last 5 months. Some of these volunteers are absolutely trained and by and large good to go as a result of service they've had with either other departments or one in particular within the United States Navy, where he was a fire director on board a nuclear submarine. More good news is that we had 22 new helmets that have been received and paid for with a $10,000 grant that was very actively pursued within the department. They are superior eye protection. The old helmets had 3.5 inches space between the face mask and the face. They are now much closer to the face and comply with national standards. As an example, a further example of the need, the old helmets were 22 years old when the standards are that they should be replaced every 10 years. Community Service Bulletin, Holiday Fire Safety. Chief Camilleri advised at our last meeting that one of the leading causes of damage by fire inside homes is where you will go ahead and build a nice fire and the embers burn down into ash. People have a habit of going to bed sometimes with the embers in place, sometimes opening up their door so that they go into a pit and down in the basement. You need to close the pit door because if they fall out and land on something flammable, the worst time of the day for a fire is at night. Please be careful to secure your pits. Also, people have generators in their garage because it's out of the weather. They don't have to go outside necessarily. We've already had one fire as a result of a generator that was being operated inside a garage. Please take them outside, follow all of the safety precautions and warnings. Other thing is, we had fall back an hour. It's an excellent time for you to check the batteries in your smoke detectors. Check them all. 6 months. Make sure, in this case, I believe it's 4 months until we have a new spring forward in April. So when we start looking at 5 or 6 months between now and then, that's a decent life for most of the batteries. They're cheap, they're easy to install, and they are a great bang for your fire prevention dollar. Also, it is that time of year again where there's love in the air and the deer are running around. You have a lot of bucks and does out there that are in the middle of the mating season. I had the misfortune Saturday night, I believe it was, Doug, where we had a buck that was struck by a vehicle in front of public safety by Hickory. That animal was in a significant amount of distress and had to be put down from what it looked like. It could raise the head up a little bit, but suffered enough damage, and it was a large deer that did some damage to the vehicle. I understand the speed limit on Meridian is 35 and a number of other roads is 30. Please slow down because with all the woods and the greenways and the open space, they jump out. And I don't know that anybody was hurt in that accident, but it was a very, very large deer that would do a lot of damage to somebody inside, so please slow down. Also want to say a special thank you to all the veterans that are residents who have served. Board members, past and present, and employees would include Assessor Tim O'Donnell, former Supervisor Brian Loftus, Treasurer Ted Van Oss, and Trustee Yager, who is currently in service. And I want to thank all of the veterans for everything that they have done. If I've missed anybody here tonight, it is simply because I don't know, but I know that there are a lot of people. Mr. Heil, you're nodding your head. Were you in the service? What branch, please? My thanks to you again, and I think that the assessor would join you with saying Semper Fi. Finally, Thanksgiving is coming up. I want to wish a special Thanksgiving to everybody. Tonight we had I think a very good meeting. There was a lot of give and take, a lot of ideas that were exchanged. Truly one of the best things that we have about this community is people can come up, we can have honest differences of opinion. And I think, Greg, as you said tonight, we reached a very good result. Let's look at this thing, and I really do appreciate the idea of going forward with transparency and understanding exactly what the voters are, what they're approving and what we're asking them to approve. Again, the commissions will propose. It's up for us to dispose, and it's up for everybody else then to go ahead and explain it. So with all that being said, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. And that concludes my report.
Thanks, Carl. Kyle?
Yes, thank you. While Joe mentioned the spam filter, I'll go into that a little bit. For me, it's the actual software that just feels broken in many different ways. I've interacted with a lot of different types of spam filters. This one has to be one of the worst that I've ever interacted with. Any good IT company should be able to implement different spam software. It might cause us some headaches, but at least right now, the experience that a lot of people have of, hey, your email's blocked and then no indication that your email's been let through is just a really bad experience for a lot of people. So, that's my recommendation there to ask them to implement new spam software. I sit on the Planning Commission. Thank you to all the members of the board that came to our first public kind of visioning of the master plan process. I got a lot of good feedback on that session. I know there's sometimes worries about what you televise and what you don't televise, but for me that was a perfect example of like, hey, folks like seeing different things happening here, being televised, how we interact with each other, and that went really well. And so I just want to thank everyone that participated, all the planning commissioners, all the folks that are on the steering committee, and the work continues there. A mobile tour happened today. I was not able to attend, and there's just much more to come on the master plan process. So again, thanks for everyone that participated, and I want to encourage people to continue to participate. I'll say, I know we already said a lot of words on the police millage, but I'll just say one more thing. I know there's a lot of mistrust. I know there's a lot of folks unhappy, but at least as long as I've been on this board, I've seen folks very responsive to public feedback, willing to work with each other. And tonight is another example of that. So that was there was a lot of good public input. Folks gave feedback. We're tabling it. We're going back to the drawing board, not drawing board, but just going to try to clarify some things, and that's a good thing. And so I hear folks' frustration, but I'd also encourage folks to give praise when we do the right thing. And I heard some of that tonight from some of the commenters, so thank you. McLeod Steel, I'm glad you brought that up, Joe. You told me about it. I couldn't believe it. One other thing I'll say often here from the public is like, why don't you push harder? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? I will tell you on McLeod, on the calcium hydroxide that was leaching into our waterways, that is a threat to public health, to fish, to everything. I've fought on that since February. Fighting on that, I had to get EPA, Eagle, finally, Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, Wayne County Department of Health, all do agree that the very minimum thing that they could do was put up signs at that intersection right there. And then what happens? Wayne County Department of Public Services shows up one day and decides, oh, never mind, we don't want to put signs there. That's a month process, and only to get pushed back. So what do we got to do now? We got to go again, prove that there's pooling again. And again, the process of proving it, it's not just me going and taking a picture saying this is happening. No, I've got to take a picture. I've got to get Eagle to come test it. They have to prove that that's what's happening. It's just on and on and on. So that Wayne County did that. I think a lot of folks watch me up here. I try to be not angry or try to be, as level-headed as I can. That really did make me angry when I heard that, Joe. And it's just one thing. So to lead into that, on top of that, yes, public hearing. I know we'll hear a little bit about it tonight, but to me, that was promised to us. I know that they don't have all the information that they need or that they feel like they need to present to us. But for me, a good example was DTE. They came to us. They said, hey, this is what we think happened. We don't have all the information, but being here bought goodwill. It showed people, hey, look, they're paying attention to us. They're thinking about us. And I'll tell you, as we're making this decision about the toll bridge, that was brought up in the public comments tonight. I think, I don't know where the deadlines are on that currently, but I assume they'll continue to be pushed back beyond December. But I want all the information I can get on the Free Bridge to make a decision on the toll bridge. So I would like a public hearing from Wayne County on that. And again, I feel like we are being failed at that level on that. And there's things we can do, and there's things that I want to do and will do. I haven't done quite yet, but I'll hold myself accountable on that and pushing Wayne County. So finally, I brought up R1E tonight. I understand why it was tabled. For me, I just kind of want an informal discussion. The Planning Commission did discuss it with the Vogels. There tends to be, I see a consensus forming in the Planning Commission, so I just wanted to bring it up to the board to see kind of, again, very informally what folks are thinking about it. There's obviously a master planning process that's happening right now that theoretically could modify R1E, but for me that's a multi-year process is what I'm seeing. I'm hopeful that just a year, but it could be 2 years, 3 years. You never know. Trenton, when they did their master plan, took them a long time before they finally did their zoning updates. So for me, we had a very clear example of a resident trying to improve their own property that could bring in property taxes right now, and I'm wondering if there's even just a slight modification we can make to allow something like that through. So I'm very happy to bring forth what I've seen and said for our next discussion, but it seems like a small thing, but as we're, not hurting, but just as we're looking for ways to sustain the services that we have, those small things add up. $20,000 1 year, like she showed, adds up to $200,000 over 10 years. So that's just one small property. And so the quicker we can act on these and allow folks to invest in their properties, I think the better. And again, this is just common sense investment by an individual in their own property that fits with the character of the neighborhood. I think it's something that our ordinance should allow and that we should try to act on quickly rather than wait through a whole master planning process. So I will conclude my report there. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Derek, if you would.
Just a couple quick things. I know it's been a long evening. We got notification today that paving work on Meridian, so this is going to be asphalt paving, north of Ferry is scheduled for this Friday, weather dependent. And then after that is complete, they'll be moving south of Ferry, either when they're done with that work on Friday or next Monday. So that's all contingent upon weather and other conditions, but that's the game plan right now. And then the concrete work that the township is currently doing throughout the community. That's about concluding for the season, and cleanup and restoration should occur shortly afterwards. I believe we're on our last pour right now, so that should be wrapping up in the next 7 days. That's all I have for this evening. Thank you.
Oh, Derek, thank you. All right. Just for our residents out there that might need help with either finding a job or need assistance to get food or other things, both the Downriver Guidance Center as well as the DCC, which is actually both right around North Line Road, contact them and they may be able to help you out. That's what they're there for. Wayne County meeting. Derek and I talked to Wayne County about a totally different issue, but while we were talking to him, I did bring that up, and their response was that they did not want to come and talk to us until they had something definitive to tell us. They didn't want to come here and just say the same thing that I have passed on to you. We're in the design stage, and then it has to go to this. And I in fact said to them, and well pointed out by Kyle, just you being there, even though you might not have any definitive answers, would be a help. But they left it with.
So that's a no.
That is, yeah.
I don't mean to be. It's not towards
shortcut
you.
it.
Yeah,
it
no,
is.
no.
It appears that they are gonna.
So that's a no.
It's a no for this year. It's not a no.
I get you.
They absolutely said they want to come and do it, but they want to do it when they have something to say, which is to me is a no for this year. So that on the speed limit on the bridge, I also asked them about that and where that is. And now they are doing road tests or car counts and car speeds, and they're doing it in conjunction with MDOT. All right, so where are we? We're nowhere.
Oh, you mean that's a no too?
Well, no, it's not a no. They said they are working on it, but that's where they are. They're doing these tests.
Oh, I got you.
Okay.
I got you.
Master plan, I'm on the steering committee as well as I attended as the board for the planning commission meeting. It is a long process. But it was a very good meeting. Our steering committee meeting was a very good meeting. A lot of enthusiasm for this. I can't stress enough for the people to be involved in this. The idea of what Grosse should be in the future in this master plan should be what the people of Grosse want, not what some small groups or the board. But that is what will happen if you don't show up and give them your opinions on things. Now, I will say, one of the great things is they are going to go out with surveys. They're going to have virtual meetings. They're going to have in-person meetings. They're going to give a lot of avenues for you to give your opinions on things. Please watch for that and respond to them. Corps engineer, I thought, and over the years I've attended a number of them, not all of them. I thought that was probably the best meeting that they've had. It gave, I thought, a lot of good information finally. The answer on the soccer fields was good to hear, and certainly seemed pretty much qualified that it was safe. I mean, it wasn't like, yeah, kind of, we think it was good. So I was pleased with that. That I thought one of the most interesting things, and I hadn't heard this before, the question was asked, well, you do this report, you close up shop and you leave. What if we find something the day after you leave? Or obviously down the road. Their answer was, we come back. But it has to be, they're only dealing with things that the military created. They're not going to deal with things that someone else created. So that's their criteria and where they can spend their money. But it was good to hear, I thought, that, hey, we're not, when this is done, we're not necessarily done with them. We can get them back if we find something else. I think plenty has been said about the police millage. I will say, when departments want a millage, it is the department also. I mean, certainly the board can support and go out and work with them on promoting the need, because we can't and shouldn't be telling our residents to vote for or against anything. However, we can educate, if you will, and tell them why we think we need this millage. But the department certainly works in that, and the best example would be the DPS when they wanted their road millage. They worked on that whole thing from beginning to end, from the head to the toe. I was asked and did sit with them on their video and added to the education on that. But it's something that we all do. It's not any one individual or one group's responsibility. We can all work together on that. DDA meeting, normally it's the fourth Thursday, which would be Thanksgiving. So that's postponed until the following Thursday, which is November 30th, here in the boardroom at 6:30. Finally, I would just like to wish all of the people on Grosse a very happy Thanksgiving from myself and my wife. And with that,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming, guys.